Chapter 743. This system announcement caused Zhao Fu to feel quite startled. He had never thought that something like this would happen. When Zhao Fu heard about the invasion, he knew that this was not a small matter, and it could even endanger the human world. The dark demon world, which had been the most dangerous, was completely fine, while the safest world, the water race, had been attacked. Zhao Fu did not know what the situation was like, and he did not know if this was an accident or if it was the water race's invasion. If it was an invasion, the situation would be even more serious, because if the other side was prepared to invade, the entire human world would be in danger. Zhao Fu understood how serious this matter was, and by now, the entire world had received this news. Zhao Fu immediately got up and used the transboundary teleportation channel to head to the southern continent. The southern continent was mostly African, and this was Akhenaten's territory. Zhao Fu did not know what the situation was like, and he wondered if the fish-scale people had already started to invade. Zhao Fu started to feel quite nervous, and he quickly rushed to the boundary of the southern continent. The other legatees also hurried over with worried expressions. When Zhao Fu arrived, the scene before him made him feel quite shocked. At the boundary of the southern continent, there had been a barrier around the legacy land. Outside of the barrier, it was a hazy gray area, making it impossible to see anything. However, things were different now. There was a rift that was millions of kilometers wide, and on the other side was another world. That world had a blue sky and white clouds, as well as a boundless ocean. The sound of waves crashing could be heard from the other side, and the sound was incredibly deafening. The scene was quite majestic and shocking. Akhenaten and some other people had long since arrived, and they stood by the side, staring at the scene in shock. Following this, the other legatees also arrived, and looking at the majestic scene, they felt quite shocked. "What's going on?" Tina Pendragon came to Zhao Fu and Akhenaten's side and looked at them as she asked. Zhao Fu shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Akhenaten said with a serious expression, "I don't know what happened either. I only heard a huge explosion, and then I rushed over and saw this scene." Jeffrey looked over and said, "Luckily, we haven't seen the fish-scale people yet, which means that this isn't because of them invading. When I received the system announcements, I felt quite nervous. I was worried that the fish-scale people would suddenly invade, and tens of thousands of them would slaughter their way into the human world." When the others heard this, they nodded secretly. They had the same thought. When the notification sounded, their first reaction was that the water tribe was invading. He had already imagined the scene of countless fish-scale people charging into the human world and starting a massacre. Because of how sudden the situation was, the southern continent would not be able to defend, and it would become hell. It seemed that this was not the case. It was most likely an accident, and it was possible that the fish-scale people did not know about it. However, due to this influence, the chaotic world of both worlds entered the race invasion phase. Currently, both sides had yet to make a move, but no one knew what would happen in the future. At that moment, a few figures appeared on the surface of the fish-scale world's ocean. They had human bodies, but there were small fish scales on their bodies and gills on their ears. It seemed that they could live on land and water. Immediately, Zhao Fu and the others' expressions became serious. If they could get on land, they would be able to invade, and they would not be safe. The figures gave off powerful auras, and they were most likely the legatees of the other world. Zhao Fu felt that he had been too careless and thought that the water tribe would be safe. This was a big mistake. One could not look down on any race in the heaven-awakened world. "What should we do now?" Akhenaten asked. The southern continent was his territory, and such a big thing had happened. He was the most worried, as if something happened, he would be the first to suffer. Tina Pendragon said seriously, "Of course, immediately gather the factions in the southern continent to discuss and build defensive walls to defend against the fish-scale people's invasion. Also, make preparations for a big battle. Once they invade, it will be a battle between worlds. If the southern continent is not prepared, it might fall immediately. Akhenaten nodded and said, I understand. I'll have people take care of this later. What about you? What can you do? Now, the legatees came from different continents, and they were separated by oceans. A single legatee had crossed countless regions to arrive here, and it was already quite difficult. It would be difficult for them to send a large number of reinforcements. That was what Akhenaten was worried about the most. If the southern continent did not receive reinforcements, they would have to face the entire fish-scale world's invasion. The pressure from this would be immense, and if things went wrong, he might die here. Tina Pendragon thought about it and said, When the time comes, I'll do my best to come and support you. Jeffrey also said, I'll also do my best to support you and defend against the fish-scale world's invasion. After all, this concerns all of humanity, so we have to be united. However, apart from these two, the others did not say anything. CG and Oleg were thinking about other things. Of the 8 legatees, the 2 weakest were Masanori Hanno. Because she had started developing later and only relied on the Demon City, her faction would be weaker than the others and would not be able to provide much support. The other was Babylon. Even though he was the legatee of a clan armament, he did not have a kingdom legacy or a city. He had always been by himself, so only he could help. Masanori Hanno and Babylon thought for a while before expressing that they would do their best to support him. CG and the others also made their decision and expressed their support. Following this, everyone looked at Zhao Fu, who had not said anything this entire time. They felt quite nervous. If Qin, the strongest person in the human world, did not support them, they would not have much confidence. They would feel that they would be weaker in terms of morale. Zhao Fu could tell what they were thinking, and he lightly laughed as he said, How could I not help with such an invasion? Also, it's best if everyone in the world knows about this. Otherwise, just the few of us won't be able to do much. Everyone felt quite relieved and smiled. At that moment, Zhao Fu said, We can't just passively defend. We can also take the initiative to attack. The rewards for invading a world are quite great, and there will be an ocean of fate. We can also increase the human world's fate, which is beneficial to all of humanity. While the human world's people were discussing, the fish-scale world's people were also discussing how to face the human world. Chapter 744. They weren't prepared, but we weren't prepared either. Who knew that something like this would happen? How could we attack like this? If we recklessly charge over without making any preparations, we'll definitely be defeated. Not only will we suffer countless casualties, but we'll also become a joke, a shrewd fatty retorted. A bewitching woman also said, We should go back and notify the various tribes and dynasty legatees to have them prepare. Also, I feel that it's best if we lure the humans over because the water is our home ground. The humans can't breathe underwater, and they'll drown if they fall in. However, we're different, we're amphibious, and as long as we're in the water, we'll have a great advantage. Also, they'll most likely come on boats, and we'll hide in the water. When that time comes, they'll be in the light while we'll be in the dark. Everyone was quite satisfied with this plan, and they all smiled. A gloomy elder looked at Zhao Fu and the others and said, What do we do now? Do we just leave? How are we going to deal with those human race legatees? They're most likely thinking the same thing as us, and we'll first spread the news. After all, this is a big matter between two worlds, so they most likely won't do anything for now. As such, we can leave and make preparations to slaughter the humans, a middle-aged man said as he coldly laughed. The fish-scale people looked at each other and smiled before turning into rays of light and shooting into the water and disappearing. Zhao Fu sensed the hostility from the other side and coldly harumphed. He also turned into a ray of black light and shot over the horizon, leaving first. The remaining legatees chatted for a bit before also leaving. After everyone left, a dignified-looking little boy with 2 streams of snot running down his nose came out of the water. Looking at the scene in front of him, he felt quite dumbfounded. He then looked at the rainbow shard in his hand and felt that he had caused trouble. This boy looked to be from the fish scale race, but what was different about him was that he had a golden dragon tail. The boy sniffled and sucked in the snot before putting the rainbow shard into his clothes. He felt that he could not stay here any longer, and as if he had done something wrong and was afraid of being scolded by adults, he dove into the water and ran away. This matter quickly spread throughout both worlds, and almost everyone knew about it. Everyone in the fish scale world prepared to slaughter the humans. Their environment was incredibly cruel, and there were aquatic beasts everywhere. They understood the principle of the strong preying on the weak, so they all agreed to slaughter the humans. On the other side of the human world, the humans who lived at the top of the pyramid on Earth and lived a comfortable life had different attitudes. Some people were in favor of war, and of course, there were also people who opposed it and criticized such behavior. The other world didn't attack us, so why should we attack them? Being an invader is a shameful thing. I don't want future generations to say that about me, so I definitely won't go. However, I do support building a defensive wall and oppose all violence. Why can't we solve this peacefully? Why must we start a war? Do you know the consequences of war? You butchers, you're practically born human, and I don't want to be associated with you. Yeah. I'm also a pacifist, and it's best to be careful when it comes to a war between two worlds. I think we should send people over to communicate and reduce unnecessary misunderstandings. I believe that the other side is kind and won't start a war. I know this was suggested by Great Qin's legatee. Do you really want to help someone as ruthless and cruel as Great Qin's legatee? Everyone, please wake up and oppose all wars. I also support defending, and we definitely can't invade other worlds. A bunch of ignorant boorish people. It's already the 20th century, yet they still don't know how to respect human rights, justice, life, and morals. People like you are all trying to establish tyrannical regimes. If you say they're in danger, bring out some proof. Anyway, I know that they haven't attacked us yet. The human world was split into two factions. Those who supported peace did not do anything, and they instead started to criticize and insult the other side. The media that stood on the side of justice also reported and supported them. Those who supported war started to gather at the boundary of the southern continent because they knew how important this war was. If they did not react now, it would be too late for the human world to be invaded. Most of the factions were researching teleportation channels so that they could provide support if the southern continent was in danger. At the same time, all sorts of resources were being prepared, and the atmosphere was tense and austere. It was as if a shocking war was about to erupt. Zhao Fu returned to Qin City and gathered his generals to discuss this matter. Facing the fish scale people's threat, everyone became quite serious. This matter affected the entire human world, and as humans, they definitely did not want the human world to lose this war. After discussing for 3 or so hours, Qin City started to gather all sorts of resources to prepare for the war, and everything else was put on hold. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the chaotic world stone steel. Before, Zhao Fu had not been very interested in the items on the chaotic world stone steel, but this invasion would affect the survival of an entire race, so the rewards would definitely be quite great. Now, Qin City's chaotic world stone steel was level 8, which was something that ordinary dynasties could not achieve. This chaotic world stone steel would most likely have some good things. Moreover, Zhao Fu received a system announcement that the chaotic world stone steel had been updated, making Zhao Fu feel even more excited. He looked at the chaotic world stone steel, and it did not disappoint Zhao Fu. Within the chaotic world stone steel, Zhao Fu saw a few things that he was quite interested in. These things were almost impossible to obtain before. For example, the first thing Zhao Fu saw was a great city upgrade stone, the second was a blueprint for the dragon-slaying ballista, and the third was a 10,000 blood god stone that could be used by the corpse soul blood lake. It could create 100 corpse soul soldiers and 5 corpse soul commanders every day. There were also cities that could be exchanged for. Apart from towns and cities, there were also great cities and, at the very highest, capital cities. Even though capital cities were quite expensive, this gave Zhao Fu a trace of hope. If he could exchange for a capital city, he would be one step closer to restoring Qin City. If he could exchange for 3 capital cities, Zhao Fu would be able to upgrade Qin City to level 6, and he would be able to establish a kingdom. This made Zhao Fu feel quite excited. Looking at so many tempting things, Zhao Fu wanted to participate even more. After this matter was resolved, Qin City would not be too far away from establishing a kingdom. Chapter 745. The reason Zhao Fu had come here by himself was because he wanted to obtain accurate information about the fish scale people. He did not want to send his soldiers ahead of time, as they did not know much yet. If he sent his soldiers over and billions of enemies invaded, it was possible that all of Zhao Fu's soldiers would be wiped out. He could not afford to be careless in such a world-class battle, and Zhao Fu would not joke around with his soldiers' lives. There were still many people who had not arrived yet, so it would take some time. However, some people from the southern continent had already arrived and started to build defensive walls. They were mainly made from massive trees, rocks, and clay, and they were quite simple and quick. Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and flew into the fish scale world. Looking at the boundless ocean, Zhao Fu unleashed his emperor's domain and dove into the water. He felt that the fish scale people were quite easy to attack, as they lived in the water and did not have many defensive walls. If they built defensive walls, they would be able to swim over without any obstructions. Soon, Zhao Fu found a wilderness village that lived near a group of reef. Zhao Fu found that the fish scale people here all chose to rely on certain things to protect themselves. Some relied on reefs, while others relied on underwater mountains. Using natural objects as cover, they did not need to build defensive walls. However, attacking them would be quite troublesome, as they could not only use reefs to attack, but they could also use reefs and mountains to hide. The fish scale people were not as easy to deal with as they had imagined, and attacking them would be quite troublesome. First, there was the problem of water. Humans could not breathe underwater, and while they could swim and dive, they could not fight underwater unless they had items that could breathe underwater. After looking around for a while, Zhao Fu did not see any signs of an army coming. It seemed that the fish scale people were also making preparations. After not finding anything else, Zhao Fu returned to the human world. Time gradually passed, and more people gathered. Soon, there were 100 million people. Apart from the players, there were also the system main city residents. Zhao Fu wanted to pull the system main city residents in as well, but none of them were willing to participate. They felt that with the players blocking them, they would not act unless it was truly dangerous. This was not Zhao Fu's home field, so Zhao Fu couldn't say or do anything. After returning to Qin City, Zhao Fu ordered people to make the water pearl. Water pearls were treasures on the market that could allow one to breathe underwater, and they cost 10 silver coins each. Following the events in the fish scale world, the price of water pearls quickly increased, and it was now 15 silver coins each. Zhao Fu felt that it was too troublesome, so he obtained a blueprint and gave it to Bai Shan and the others to create it. Apart from the water spirit pearl, he also needed a large number of boats. Although he could breathe underwater, he still needed a place where he could stand to facilitate transportation, gathering, and replenishment. This was the preparation for the attack. The defensive preparations had already been made, so there was no need to worry. Half a month later, both offensive and defensive preparations had been completed. 300 million people had gathered at the southern continent's boundary, and the defensive wall was completed. It was 12 meters tall and 6 meters wide, and it was quite shocking to see such a wall being built in such a short period of time. Most of the people gathered here were from the southern continent, and various leaders had gathered, forming an alliance of thousands of people. Akhenaten's people trusted him and felt that he was more useful than Zhao Fu, so he was appointed as the commander of the alliance. As an outsider, Zhao Fu was pushed to the sidelines. It wasn't just Zhao Fu, the other legatees were also pushed aside. Apart from the fact that they were outsiders, they did not bring many people. Tina Pendragon brought 100,000 people, CG brought 80,000 people, Jeffrey brought 90,000 people, Masanori Hano brought 70,000 people, and Zhao Fu brought the most people with 120,000 people. It wasn't that they didn't want to send more people, it was just that crossing an entire continent was no simple matter. Zhao Fu's 120,000 soldiers had all been continuously teleported over using transboundary teleportation channels. Compared to 300 million people, 100,000 or so soldiers was not much at all. As such, many of the factions in the southern continent looked down on them. Adding on the fact that they were outsiders, they were naturally pushed aside. Zhao Fu did not mind too much. He did not want to use his full strength this time, and he wanted to see the fish scale people's strength first. This was just a test. After so much time had passed, the human side had finished their preparations, but the fish scale people had not reacted at all. Another half a month passed, and now they had waited for more than a month, but the fish scale people still had not reacted. By now, some people were starting to feel dissatisfied. They couldn't just waste so many people here. Zhao Fu wanted to take the initiative to attack and test the situation, but he did not have much authority here. Zhao Fu would not send his 120,000 soldiers, because if there was any danger, they would all be wiped out. Akhenaten had also thought about taking the initiative to invade, but because of the urgency of the situation, at least 80% of the fish scale people had not prepared any means of invading. They had not prepared a large number of ships or items that could breathe underwater, and they also needed the ability to swim and fight underwater. As such, many people were not willing to invade. Not only were they not prepared, but the risks were also quite high. Even though the rewards were quite good, it was not enough for them to risk everything. A few more days passed, and the dissatisfaction reached its peak. Some people started to say that Zhao Fu and the other legatees were making too much of a fuss about nothing, and that the other side did not have any intentions of attacking the human world. It was Zhao Fu and the other legatees who were too cowardly and often thought that the other side would harm the human world. As the world protector, Zhao Fu was the most important person in the world, so he was naturally criticized the most. The other legatees felt quite angry and left one after another. In the end, only Tina Pendragon and Jeffrey remained. Zhao Fu was also quite angry, but he still stayed. Another 3 days passed, and some people cursed and left. Now that things had started, many people also chose to leave. They had already spent more than a month here, and no one wanted to waste any more time like this. In the end, they could only leave. In the end, there were only 3 million soldiers left on the defensive wall. The various factions left some people behind to stand guard before returning to their own bases. Seeing that there were only so few people left, Zhao Fu could only helplessly return to Qin City with his soldiers. He felt quite confused as to why the fish scale people had not invaded yet. Were they waiting for the human world to invade? However, very few people in the human world had experience fighting underwater, and Qin City was the same. They only had experience fighting on land, and they did not know anything about the other side. They did not want to take the risk and were afraid of suffering heavy casualties, so they naturally would not attack. Chapter 746. Everyone had been filled with battle intent as they set off to defend against and invade the fish-scale world. However, they had now returned dispiritedly, dealing a great blow to everyone's morale. They started to doubt whether this was right or wrong, and those who had not done anything before started to mock them. "Didn't you say that the situation was dire? Is the human world going to suffer a massive disaster? What a big fuss. Did anything happen? Nothing happened at all. Why do you think that the other side is as greedy and selfish as humans? You've all made a big mistake this time. So many people rushed over. Not only did it waste a lot of time and effort, but it also affected the image of us humans. You've lost face for us humans, and others will think that we're unreasonable boorish people. That's right. I hate these idiots the most. Just because someone casually said something, they just ran over and blindly believed everything. Luckily, I was smart and didn't go. Now, the truth is that the other side didn't attack us. Ha ha. I demand that those who went to the boundary apologize. This will affect the image of us humans too much, and it might cause a huge battle. If they don't apologize and a huge battle breaks out, they'll have to take responsibility. In actuality, those legatees are too cowardly. The main reason was that those inheritors were too cowardly. We humans are the wisest of all creatures, so why would we be afraid of others? We humans have the strength to defend against everything. I have absolute confidence in that. However, those legatees have lost face for us humans. The people who said these things were mostly people who lived the most comfortable lives. They had plenty of resources and did not have much to worry about. Hearing these people say these things, the people who had participated in the battle could not refute them, and it was as if they had done something wrong. Before, 70% of the people wanted to fight, 20% were pacifists, and the remaining 10% were just spectators. However, after a month of peace, only 30% of the people wanted to fight remained, 40% were pacifists, and 30% were indifferent. The most active were, of course, the pacifists. They raised flags everywhere, saying that they wanted Legatee Chin's legatee to go and apologize. Since they were legatees, they should accept responsibility, and that they had the right to make them apologize. After all, the world belonged to them, and they wanted freedom and democracy. Everyone had their own rights, and they could not allow anyone to destroy those rights. No one or a few people could represent them. Since they had done something wrong, they should go and apologize. Otherwise, they would not be fit to be legatees and would continue to lose face for the entire human race. Everyone, please courageously stand up and resist these ruthless people. This made the legatees feel incredibly angry, and Oleg directly announced that he would not care about this anymore. Jeffrey patiently explained to everyone. Jeffrey's legatee's legatee and legatee's legatee was not too angry. Akhenaten felt quite complicated and did not know how to deal with all of this. So much time had passed, and he did not know if the other side had invaded or not. However, he did not want to cause any trouble and just wanted the Pharaoh kingdom to develop peacefully. Zhao Fu was so angry that he could not say anything, and he did not care about these things anymore. He stayed within Great Qin and focused on developing weapons that countered the fish-scale people. At the same time, Zhao Fu was also training the soldiers' ability to fight underwater. He didn't want them to be useless underwater and be unable to use their powerful cultivation. Time continued to pass day by day. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the new year. More than 2 months had passed since the appearance of the Great Southern Rift. Things gradually calmed down, and people did not pay too much attention to the situation at the southern boundary. The pacifists did not make any more ruckus, and they turned their attention to other matters. It had been 2 months, and perhaps the fish-scale people would not invade the human world. During these 2 months, Qin City continued to develop steadily and quickly. During these 2 months, Qin City had already cleared out 15 regions, and it now controlled 123 regions. During this period of time, another 21 system main cities were unable to resist and chose to join Qin City. Now that the natural disaster had been raging for almost a year, there was a shortage of food. Because of the impact of the natural disaster, there was almost no harvest. Food, which was originally so cheap that almost no one wanted it, had now become an important resource. With the shortage of resources, the outbreak of conflict became even more intense. Under starvation, even a group of good citizens would become rioters and start to steal from each other, making the situation even more chaotic than before. Zhao Fu did not care about these things and continued to research weapons to deal with the fish scale people. By now, Zhao Fu had already made up his mind that even if the fish scale people did not invade, Zhao Fu would still attack for the capital city and other rewards. Because they were not from the same race, Zhao Fu did not trust them at all. As such, he had to deal with them. Even if they were not in danger now, who knew what would happen in the future? When dealing with the fish scale people, Zhao Fu likened them to a school of fish. Fish were aquatic creatures, so they were quite similar to other aquatic races. Zhao Fu wanted to use the same method to deal with the fish scale people. If people wanted to catch fish, some would use fishing nets, some would use their hands, and some would use harpoons. Of course, this was not possible. The fish scale people were not real fish, so these methods were not suitable for them. Zhao Fu used a large-scale method, which was to catch large groups of fish, such as fishing nets, poison, and mines. These three methods were the most common methods of catching large groups of fish. However, because the situation was different, Zhao Fu made some changes. For example, Zhao Fu used the silver-grade metal that Qin had spent a lot of effort to obtain, as well as a special material to create it. Ordinary Stage 1 soldiers and below would not be able to cut through it, and if many Stage 1 soldiers sent their cultivation power into it, even Stage 2 soldiers would not be able to escape. The second method was to use poison. This method was very rarely used, as just a few vials of poison could kill all of the creatures in a river. This was simply too immoral, so not many people saw it, and it was strictly forbidden. Zhao Fu ordered people to gather a massive amount of poison from all over China. At that moment, the other treasure that Zhao Fu had obtained was put to use, which was the 10,000 poison divine cauldron that he had obtained from killing the purple-scaled python. This cauldron could refine all kinds of poisons, and it could also release the greatest toxicity. The cauldron itself could also evolve through refining poisons, and it was a treasure with growth potential. A single drop of poison that could kill hundreds of people was brought over by Zhao Fu and poured into the 10,000 poison divine cauldron before refining a few drops. Chapter 747. The final method was to use naval mines. Because water was also a conductor, the power of a naval mine's explosion would be even greater than on land, and its destructive power was incredibly shocking. In the past, people often used this method to blow up fish, and they would be able to destroy a large area. Now, it was not that common anymore, as it was quite dangerous. Moreover, anyone who used this method to blow up fish would be said to be cruel and immoral, and others would not allow it. Zhao Fu did not have any naval mines, but he had two humanoid missiles, which were Binoche and Karash. During the defensive battle, Zhao Fu had heard of their performance. A combined forbidden spell had blasted open a 10-kilometer-wide crater, causing millions of soldiers to not dare to come close. This time, Zhao Fu wanted to rely on them to seal the forbidden spell and create a forbidden spell item. He would seal the forbidden spell's power within an item, and as long as he threw it out, it would activate the forbidden spell's power. This was similar to a magic scroll. Zhao Fu used a high-purity energy crystal as a medium. It was a 30-centimeter-long rhombus-shaped crystal that was incredibly transparent and had many small faces like a diamond. It refracted light and looked quite beautiful. This kind of crystal could contain terrifying power, and only it could be used as a medium for forbidden spells. Ordinary items would not be able to withstand forbidden spells' destructive power. However, these crystals were quite expensive, and they cost 10,000 gold coins each. Zhao Fu gave the crystals to Binoche and Karash. Because forbidden spells required a large amount of strength and energy, even though Zhao Fu helped them by recovery items, they could only create 2 destruction crystals per day. Destruction crystal was the name of the finished product, and its appearance had greatly changed. The transparent rhombus-shaped crystal was now icy on one side and fiery on the other, and it gave off a terrifying destructive aura. In the past month or so, Binoche and Karash had created 75 destruction crystals in total. These were the things that Zhao Fu used to blow up the fish, and they were incredibly powerful and could cause people to feel despair. After making these preparations, Zhao Fu did not start attacking. This was because it was almost the New Year, which was one of the most important holidays. Zhao Fu wanted the soldiers to relax and prepare for the cruel battles next year. At the same time, Zhao Fu also hoped that there would be good weather next year, so that Qin could also have a good celebration. Compared with the festive and lively scene in Qin City, most places were gloomy. They didn't even have enough to eat. How could they be happy? Therefore, they didn't have a happy New Year. On the contrary, they were very worried and hoped that the natural disaster would be over soon next year. He turned his gaze to the border of the southern continent. The opening that was millions of kilometers long was still the same, and nothing had changed. The sea breeze from the other world blew over, and the deafening sound of the waves was the same as usual. The 3 million soldiers had stood guard here for 2 or so months, and their days had been quite boring. Because there had been no movement from the other side, they were not too worried. They thought to themselves that the fish-scale people wouldn't dare to invade the human world either. The sky was completely dark, and it was even darker than usual. There were no stars or moons, and it was as if all light had been devoured. This sort of darkness made people feel quite afraid and terrified. Bonfires danced in the wind on the defensive walls, and a few soldiers sat together with a jug of wine, feeling quite dissatisfied. A soldier said drunkenly, "I'm bored to death here. I just stand guard here every day. The fish-scale world definitely won't attack, and it's been so long. When will the leader call us back? Or when will the fish-scale world attack? At least it won't be so boring." These words caused the other drunken soldiers to nod in agreement. After all, they were also quite dissatisfied with just standing here like this. Rumble, suddenly, a massive explosion sounded out as the ground started to violently tremble. A terrifying and suffocating aura swept out like a tsunami, and the 3 million soldiers' bodies instantly froze. They felt as if they had fallen into bone-chilling ice water, and their souls trembled. The soldiers stood up in terror and looked towards the fish-scale world, because that was where the aura was coming from. Because of the darkness, the soldiers could not see ahead clearly. They could only see countless eyes that were as big as 2 houses, giving off a faint blood-red light, looking at the soldiers on the defensive walls with savage gazes. Enemy attack! A voice filled with extreme fear tore through the air, making the dark night seem even more terrifying and even more miserable. The ground continuously trembled, and the soldiers shot out a few massive light bombs in terror. White light spread out in the darkness, illuminating the surroundings. However, as the darkness receded, everyone became even more terrified, and they finally saw what was attacking. There were countless aquatic beasts that gave off terrifying and despairing auras. There were crab-like creatures that were 10 or so meters long, crocodile-like creatures that were 100 meters long, and striped sea snakes that were 1,000 meters long. There were also sharks that had 2 legs and were 100 meters tall. There was also a fish that was over 50 meters long and had a pair of wings on its body. There was also an octopus that was hundreds of meters tall and had countless tentacles. There was also a sword that was over 10 meters long and could float in the air. There was also a sea turtle that was as large as a mountain. Countless sea beasts, which couldn't be seen clearly, charged at the defensive wall like a tidal wave with earth-shattering momentum. Hurry and run! The soldiers did not dare to resist at all because not only were the countless aquatic beasts massive, but there were also countless aquatic beasts rushing over like a flood. Moreover, there were countless aquatic beasts pouring through the massive rift and into the human world. The countless soldiers were so scared that they did not have the strength to fight at all, and they started to run for their lives. Some soldiers mustered up their courage and shot out arrows, but they either could not pass through the defensive walls or did not react at all. Rumble, the countless aquatic beasts gave off terrifying auras as they excitedly and madly rushed forwards. They were incredibly fast, and soon, the massive beast tide smashed into the 10 or so meter tall defensive walls. After being smashed by the massive aquatic beasts, the tall and sturdy defensive walls loudly collapsed. They were unable to stop the aquatic beasts at all, and the majestic defensive walls that were millions of kilometers long collapsed just like that, as if they had been completely useless. The soldiers were unable to escape at all, and they were either trampled to death or devoured. Pained cries tore through the air, and in just an instant 3 million soldiers had died. Roar! Chapter 748. In the distance, 10 or so people looked at the rampaging aquatic beasts and grinned. These were the aquatic beasts that had rampaged in their world, and they could not control them. They had paid a heavy price and suffered heavy casualties, and it had taken them 2 or so months to lure them over. This was why they had not done anything for 2 or so months. They had been spying on this world this entire time, and they wanted to see the humans fighting amongst themselves. At first, they had wanted to wait for the humans to invade before using their geographical advantage to destroy the humans. It was a pity that the humans did not have any intentions of attacking, so they could only change their strategy and use the aquatic beasts' power to sweep through the human world. With the aquatic beasts charging at the front, they would be able to easily collect the spoils of war from behind without any danger at all. However, they did not dare to act yet, as they had lured the aquatic beasts over and could not control them. If they got too close, they would be attacked by the aquatic beasts, and they would suffer heavy casualties. In actuality, this move was quite insidious, as the aquatic beasts were a scourge to the fish-scale world. By luring the aquatic beasts to the human world, they would be able to deal a blow to the human world's strength, and even if the aquatic beasts were destroyed, they would be getting rid of a scourge for the fish-scale world, and they would not lose a single soldier. The beast tide formed by the aquatic beasts was 10 or so times more terrifying than a beast tide formed by ordinary wild beasts. It was like a bulldozer, and no matter if it was the trees, grass, rocks, or ground, they were not flattened at all. There were only countless deep footprints on the ground. After breaking through the defensive walls, the aquatic beasts rampaged towards the human world. The first to sense danger were the wild beasts, and they madly ran for their lives. By the time the humans discovered this, it was already too late. Villages and towns were instantly inundated, and they could not resist at all. It was as if a massive beast had trampled over a group of ants. By the time a system main city discovered these terrifying aquatic beasts, it was already too late to run. The massive figures gave off mountain-toppling auras as they rushed towards the system main city. The city lord led 100,000 soldiers in a counterattack. The soldiers drew their bows and sent their cultivation power into them, causing countless arrows to shoot out. However, when they hit the aquatic beasts, they only caused them to howl in pain and were unable to deal any fatal damage. This meant that even Stage 1 soldiers were unable to kill these aquatic beasts. A massive creature like this would require a team of thousands of people to kill it, and it would require everyone's cooperation to kill it. However, they had gathered together, and if the Stage 1 soldiers were unable to form a powerful attack, it would be useless no matter how many people there were. Some of the more accurate soldiers were able to shoot their arrows through the sea beast's eyes and into their brains. Only then were they able to kill some of the low-level sea beasts. However, the eyes were not that easy to shoot. These sea beasts were quite intelligent, and they naturally knew their own weaknesses. Once they closed their eyes or moved, it was very difficult to attack their eyes. 100,000 soldiers only caused the deaths of a few dozen sea beasts. However, there were tens of millions of sea beasts. This was not a battle of the same level. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the system main city's tall and sturdy city walls were smashed by the beast tide. If it was an ordinary beast tide, the system main city might have the right to remain neutral, but this beast tide was from the other world, so they could not remain neutral. After the city walls were smashed down, countless soldiers fell from the sky. Some of the soldiers were injured, while others who were prepared were able to safely land and started to fight with the aquatic beast. They were destined to be pitiful, and they were unable to deal much damage to the aquatic beast. They were either crushed by the massive bodies or devoured in one gulp. Some of the soldiers were able to reach the aquatic beasts and madly attack them. However, with the aquatic beasts' massive bodies, they were unable to deal any fatal damage. At most, they were only able to injure the soldiers. Seeing countless soldiers die, the city lord furiously slashed out a large wave of saber light, slashing an aquatic beast that was hundreds of meters long in half, causing blood to rain down. The city lord's actions had long since been noticed by a few of the 1,000-meter-long aquatic beasts. A catfish-like aquatic beast swung its tail, and its massive body smashed towards the city lord like a mountain. The city lord was unable to dodge at all, and he could only place his saber in front of him to defend. However, he was still sent flying by the massive figure. After flying back, the city lord coughed up a mouthful of blood. However, the other aquatic beast seized this opportunity and bit down on the city lord's body. Its massive bite force tore through the city lord's defensive barrier and tore his body in half. The city lord died on the spot, and his lower body was eaten while his upper body fell from the sky and heavily crashed to the ground. The aquatic beast was quite reluctant, and it lowered its head and devoured the city lord's upper body as well as his city lord seal. To the aquatic beasts, city lords were the most delicious desserts, and many aquatic beasts loved to eat them. Seeing that its desserts had been stolen, the catfish-like aquatic beast furiously roared. The aquatic beast that had eaten the city lord knew that it was in the wrong, so it ran off, indicating that it would not steal the city lord's food in the future. Only then did the massive catfish-like aquatic beast stop roaring, and it turned its savage gaze towards the residents who were running away in fear. Even though teleportation channels could be used, only a small portion of the people had been teleported out, and most of the people had remained in the city. Now that the city lord and soldiers had died, they could only run in another direction. The catfish-like aquatic beast flew over and opened its terrifying mouth, sucking in hundreds of people in a single breath before starting to chew. The sounds of bones breaking and blood splattering could be heard from the catfish-like aquatic beast's mouth. The catfish-like aquatic beast moved its throat and swallowed the meat, creating a terrifying scene that could cause anyone's hairs to stand on end. The remaining people screamed as they ran, but how could they outrun the beast tide? They were either eaten or crushed into meat paste by the massive aquatic beast. 400,000 or so people had disappeared in just a few moments, and the system main city had been razed to the ground, turning into a deathly ruin. There were corpses and blood everywhere, silently telling of what had happened here. This wasn't just what had happened to a single system main city, but countless system main cities. Tens of millions of aquatic beasts formed a massive beast tide that could simultaneously inundate 5 or 6 regions. In just a few moments, the aquatic beasts had ravaged 20 or so regions, leaving corpses strewn everywhere. Very few creatures were able to survive, and the aquatic beasts viewed all creatures in the human world as food that could be devoured. Chapter 749. The invasion of the aquatic beasts was like a massive bomb that exploded in the human world, sending massive waves through the human world. Countless people felt incredibly shocked at the horrendous scene that the aquatic beasts had created. Akhenaten immediately asked for help because facing a beast tide of 10 million aquatic beasts, it was not something that he could defend against. He would need at least 600 million or 700 million Stage 1 soldiers to defend against it, and it was possible that he would suffer heavy casualties. Facing such a massive crisis, the southern continent could only respond, and even the system main city lords could not stay out of this. After seeing the aquatic beasts wreaking havoc, they had no choice but to work together with the players. In front of the massive aquatic beast tide, ordinary soldiers were completely useless because they could only deal light damage. Stage 1 system main city soldiers were not very useful either, and they could only kill the aquatic beasts by hitting their vitals. Only Stage 2 and Stage 3 system main city soldiers could threaten the aquatic beasts. However, who would have so many Stage 2 and Stage 3 soldiers? Even if a system main city had a great advantage after such a long time, each system main city would only have 2,000 to 3,000 soldiers, and 10 system main cities would only have 20,000 to 30,000 soldiers. 100 system main cities would only have 200,000 to 300,000 soldiers. If they wanted to fight against 10 million aquatic beasts, they had to have at least 10 million soldiers. After all, a single aquatic beast was incredibly terrifying, and it would be quite difficult for a few Stage 2 soldiers to deal with it. In the human world, there was no way that they could put up a resistance. Even though thousands of city lords were willing to join them, thousands of city lords were still incredibly weak compared to millions of aquatic beasts. Even though it was a miracle that thousands of city lords were willing to join them, they were still unable to defend against the aquatic beast. The invasion of the aquatic beasts was a catastrophe for the southern continent. Akhenaten had no choice but to ask for help from the various factions. In such a dangerous and tense moment, most of the pacifist factions shut their mouths and did not say anything. However, there were still a few who continued to rebuke the players. "Look, I already said that it's your fault for charging over so aggressively. Now that they're attacking in anger, it's all because of you, so you have to take responsibility." "That's right. I also told the legatees to go and apologize, but they refused to do so. Now that they're attacking, they should be afraid. Serves them right. I feel that those legatees and World Protector don't deserve to be blamed at all. It's all because of them. If they wanted peace, would such a thing have happened? That's not going to happen. The other world is still kind because it's just these sea beasts that are invading, not the other races. Please don't think that these ferocious sea beasts represent the entire world. We should negotiate with them in a peaceful manner and work together to resolve this matter. These world protectors and legatees are eating **T. Now that the sea beasts are invading, why aren't they taking care of them? How are they supposed to be legatees and world protectors? If they can't do it, then give them to someone else. Don't just stand there and not shit. These words almost angered the legatees to death. They had wanted to go and help, but they could not help but stop. Oleg directly said that if these people did not die, he would not help even if the world was destroyed. At most, they would all die together. Now that this was said, many hot-blooded people finally couldn't help but start bombarding these saints. Those who were worried that the world would really be destroyed were afraid that they would be harmed, so they also bombarded these pacifists. Some even found them in reality and beat them up. Only then did the words disappear, and the pacifists no longer dared to say anything. Zhao Fu did not care about these words, and he immediately rushed over because this could affect Qin. Some people said that the factions in the south did not welcome them, and there were countless pacifists talking about how Zhao Fu should not act and should only act in times of crisis to reap greater benefit. However, this was a war between worlds, and Qin's family could not control it alone. If things went out of control, it would be a disaster for everyone. Zhao Fu did not care about other people's lives, but Qin was something that he wanted to protect the most. As such, Zhao Fu did not care too much about these words and insult. When Zhao Fu and the other legatees saw such a ferocious and terrifying beast tide and sensed the earth-shattering aura, they felt incredibly shocked. This did not seem to be something that humans could stop. It was not just them. Zhao Fu did not have a way to deal with this either. The Earth Realm mark had not reached the end of the world yet, so he could not use it yet. Facing such a massive beast tide, even if Zhao Fu threw down all of his destruction crystals, they would not be very effective. After all, these aquatic beasts were simply too big and had powerful life force. 75 destruction crystals would only be able to kill 1 million aquatic beasts at most. What do you all think we should do? Akhenaten felt incredibly worried because the aquatic beasts had already ravaged 50 or so regions, and 200 million people had been killed. If this went on, the southern continent would be finished. Zhao Fu said, with such a massive beast tide gathered together, the impact is simply too monstrous. Right now, we need to split them up and attack them one by one. Otherwise, if we just charge over and face such a massive beast tide, even I will die. Hearing Zhao Fu say this, the others had no other ideas and could only rely on Zhao Fu. How do we split up this massive beast tide? Tina Pendragon asked out of curiosity. After all, such a massive beast tide could destroy everything, and it would be very difficult to change their direction. Zhao Fu already had a plan, and he explained, "It's actually quite simple. We can use some mountains and strange peaks to form a V shape and point it at the beast tide. None of the aquatic beasts will charge at the mountains for no reason and will instead choose to go to the other side. That way, we'll be able to split them up. However, this will require a lot of manpower and resources, so we can only rely on the southern continent." Akhenaten felt quite relieved and smiled as he said, "Don't worry about that. In front of such a massive beast tide, not only will countless players be scared to death, but even some system main cities will be terrified. They'll naturally help." The southern continent had 7,000 regions in total, and 3,000 regions had started to move. Luckily, the paths between regions had been opened, making it easier for countless people to gather. Even though countless people were helping, it would take some time. The aquatic beasts were simply too ferocious, and they had swept through over 100 regions in a short period of time. 600 million people had been killed, and only a small portion of them had been able to escape. The situation was incredibly dire. Perhaps it was because they had eaten their fill or were tired from running, but the aquatic beasts slowed down. Otherwise, they would not have been able to create a V shape. Chapter 750. The massive beast tide was continuously split apart by the V-shaped mountains, forming groups of thousands or tens of thousands of small beasts that spread out. Luckily, there were 7,000 or so city lords helping out, and they split into smaller groups to kill these aquatic beasts. Otherwise, with the human strength, they would have been completely annihilated by these aquatic beasts without being able to resist at all. However, facing tens of millions of aquatic beasts, these people were still not enough. Akhenaten understood this, so he could only go and convince the city lords to come and see for themselves how serious the situation was. If they could not defend, they would all die together. Facing this kind of danger, the other city lords could only join in after seeing the terrifying scene that the aquatic beasts had created. However, there were still not many of them. Even though the massive beast tide had been split apart, it would take at least half a year to completely wipe out the aquatic beasts. By then, the damage that the aquatic beasts had caused would be 10 or so times worse than it was right now. This forced the southern continent's factions to ask for help from the other continent. It was impossible for the system city lords to come, as they did not care about the other continents. Right now, the only ones who could help were the player factions. However, many factions were unwilling, as they wanted to preserve their strength and whittle down the southern continent's factions. As such, only a small portion of people were willing to come to the southern continent to help. This was not something that Zhao Fu cared about, as Zhao Fu was already doing his best to help. Of course, Zhao Fu would not help the southern continent. The other legatees had already started to kill aquatic beasts, and Zhao Fu came before a group of 10,000 aquatic beasts. Looking at these strange-looking aquatic beasts, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. He could sense that they were not very powerful, but they were quite big. If they were not only big, but they also had the strength of a boss monster, they would not have been able to deal with them. Let alone the human world, no world would be able to stop their rampage. Of course, apart from some high-grade kingdoms, they would not be able to stop their rampage. Looking at these 10,000 aquatic beasts, Zhao Fu deeply breathed in, and the qin seal within his body continuously trembled as he gathered the power of 400 City Lord seals. Boom! A rainbow-colored aura flame burst forth from Zhao Fu's body, and his black cloak fluttered wildly in the wind. An extremely terrifying might suddenly descended, and the aquatic beasts that had just eaten their fill and were slowly walking around immediately sensed danger. This was the first time they had felt something like this after entering the human world. The other legatees also felt quite shocked when they sensed this power. At that moment, Zhao Fu took out the Sin Dragon sword and started his slaughter. The 1,000-meter-long black crescent flashed through the horde of aquatic beasts. Aquatic beasts' bodies were sliced open, and blood poured out like fountains. The ground was instantly dyed red, and the stench of blood filled the air. Notification: you have killed the Fish Scale World's lonesome beast and obtained 1,200 invasion points. Notification: you have killed the Fish Scale World's blunt green fish and obtained 1,000 invasion points. Notification: you have killed the Fish Scale World's palm dog and obtained 1,100 invasion points. Zhao Fu killed dozens of aquatic beasts with a single attack, and at the same time, he received countless system announcements about the rewards for killing these aquatic beasts. The deaths of dozens of aquatic beasts enraged the other aquatic beasts, and they roared as they madly charged at Zhao Fu, wanting to kill Zhao Fu. One of the tentacle monsters stretched out countless thick tentacles and whipped towards Zhao Fu with immense force, causing the air to explode. Another shark-like aquatic beast that could float in the air opened its mouth and bit at Zhao Fu. Another swordfish also shot towards Zhao Fu like a bolt of lightning, bringing with it a sharp gust of wind. Zhao Fu stood where he was and the Sin Dragon sword gave off a brilliant sword light. He casually slashed out, and a sword arc flashed out, slashing apart countless tentacles. The tentacles cried out in pain and instinctively retreated a few steps. The shark arrived in front of Zhao Fu and was about to bite at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu slashed out horizontally, and a black sword light split apart the shark's body, causing it to fall from the sky. The swordfish also flew over, and Zhao Fu dodged to the side. The swordfish passed by Zhao Fu, and just as it was about to turn around and attack, Zhao Fu stretched out his other hand and gripped it. Countless chains shot out from the air and pierced through the swordfish's body, instantly killing it. After killing 3 aquatic beasts, Zhao Fu did not feel happy at all because many more aquatic beasts were furiously charging over. The scene of 10,000 aquatic beasts rushing over was quite terrifying because of their massive bodies. It was as if they were a ferocious beast tide. Xing! Zhao Fu sent a large amount of power into the Sin Dragon sword and raised it high into the air before slashing down. 3 massive water dragons gave off powerful auras as they roared and charged at the aquatic beast tide. Bang! 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 One after another, the sea beasts were sent flying, making muffled sounds. The 3 water dragons charged into the horde of sea beasts, sending hundreds of sea beasts flying. However, the remaining aquatic beasts continued to ferociously charge over. Zhao Fu did not feel any fear at all, and his body turned into a ray of sword light that left behind a river of sword qi as he shot towards the ferocious aquatic beast tide. The sword light was incredibly sharp and seemed to be unstoppable as it slashed through the aquatic beast tide. Countless aquatic beasts' bodies were cut into pieces, and blood spurted everywhere, forming a bloody trail. In just an instant, thousands of aquatic beasts had died, causing the other aquatic beasts to feel quite terrified. Bang! Suddenly, a black blur flashed by, and Zhao Fu's body was sent flying, heavily crashing into a few aquatic beasts. These massive aquatic beasts crashed to the ground. Zhao Fu immediately unleashed his Emperor's domain, and even though he had been hit, he was not injured. However, his expression became serious because a 10,000-meter-long python with 3 heads had appeared in front of him. The appearance of this python caused the other aquatic beasts to feel quite afraid, and they did not dare to get close. This showed just how powerful this aquatic beast was. Bang! 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 The 3 heads spat out 3 rays of black light that contained destructive power as they shot towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu quickly dodged to the side, and as the 3 rays of black light landed on the ground, they blasted open 3 craters that were 100 meters wide and 10 or so meters deep. The 10,000-meter-long python was a super-aquatic beast in the fish scale world, and it could become an aquatic beast king. It was incredibly powerful, and back then, the fish scale world had sent out 100 city lords, but they had been unable to kill it. Instead, they had suffered heavy losses, so they had brought it into the human world. Seeing that Zhao Fu had dodged, the 3-headed python's cold eyes gave off a trace of killing intent, and its body moved as fast as a black blur as it bit towards Zhao Fu. The 3-headed python was incredibly powerful and incredibly fast, and its 3 heads opened their mouths and bit towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu could only dodge to the side, and the other aquatic beasts had long since left in fear, not daring to participate in this monster-level battle. Chapter 751. After dodging the 3-headed snake's attack, Zhao Fu waved his hand and slashed out a sword light. The sword light, which could normally cut aquatic beasts in half, only left a light wound on the 3-headed snake's body. The 3-headed snake was infuriated and roared as its 3 heads shot out black beams of light, sweeping towards Zhao Fu. These beams of light were like lasers, and wherever they passed, they would leave behind massive ravines, looking incredibly terrifying. The originally fine terrain was instantly destroyed, turning into crisscrossed ravines, cracks, and collapses everywhere. It was a scene of destruction. Zhao Fu narrowly dodged, and when the 3-headed snake finally stopped attacking, he slashed out with all of his strength, sending out a 1,000-meter-long sword light that gave off a heaven-piercing aura as it slashed towards the 3-headed snake. Boom! The massive power of the sword light sent the 3-headed snake's 10,000-meter-long body flying 10 or so meters before crashing to the ground, kicking up a large amount of dust. SSSS. The 3-headed snake was infuriated, and a 1-meter-deep gash appeared on its abdomen, from which blood continuously flowed out. Even though this kind of wound was only a small one to it, it had never suffered something like this before. Within the dust, the 3-headed snake raised its heads and opened its mouths, shooting out 3 rays of black light. These rays of black light tore through the air and instantly arrived in front of Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu was unable to dodge, so he could only send out a sword light. Zhao Fu slashed out horizontally, and the sharp sword light cut apart the 3 rays of black light, causing them to turn into motes of light and dissipate. Bang! Suddenly, a black blur slammed into Zhao Fu's body. It was a snake head that was as big as a small mountain. In that instant, the 3-headed snake seemed to teleport, arriving in front of Zhao Fu and attacking Zhao Fu. The massive snake head sent Zhao Fu flying, and he crashed heavily against a mountain. A trace of blood leaked out of Zhao Fu's mouth. This time, Zhao Fu had not been able to use his Emperor's domain in time, so he was only slightly injured. Swish! Swish! Whoosh! The 3-headed snake shot out 3 more beams of black light, which flew towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu could only dodge to the side, and the 3 beams of black light struck the mountain, creating 3 large holes in it. Roar! Zhao Fu felt a trace of anger and raised the Sin Dragon sword with both hands, sending all of his power into it. The Sin Dragon's sword gave off a brilliant sword light and a dragon's roar as 3 water dragons gave off ferocious power and rushed towards the 3-headed snake. The 3-headed snake's massive body was unable to dodge at all. It was struck by the 3 water dragons, and its 10,000-meter-long body was sent flying back several hundred meters, knocking down a mountain. The deafening sound caused the spectating sea beasts to tremble in fear. This time, the 3-headed snake was truly enraged. Its body was sent flying by the 3 water dragons, and even though it did not seem to be injured on the surface, it had suffered internal injuries. Blood flowed out of the 3 snake heads' mouths, and it raised its body and let out an ear-piercing screech. The 3-headed snake continuously spat out black spheres of light from its mouth. It was like a machine gun continuously firing black bullet. Bang! Bang! As the black bullets continuously shot out, Zhao Fu unleashed his Emperor's domain and quickly dodged. These black bullets were incredibly powerful, and every one of them would blast open a 10-meter-wide crater on the ground. In just a few moments there were over 10,000 of these craters on the ground, and the terrain had been completely destroyed. Suddenly, a wave of demonic chi shot into the sky, and the sun in the sky seemed to be dyed black. It no longer gave off heat and instead gave off a boundless demonic intent. An extremely terrifying sword aura appeared, and a wild gale swept out. By now, Zhao Fu's body was surrounded by demonic chi, and he raised a demon sword. Zhao Fu had already switched to the Sky Demon Sword, and he used the Sky Demon Sword's most powerful skill, Demon Sun. The 3-headed snake sensed the immense danger, and its 3 heads were filled with madness and bloodlust. A large amount of black light shot out from its mouth and gathered in front of the middle head, forming a black orb. The black orb continuously absorbed the black light and became larger and larger until it was 100 meters wide. Black arcs of lightning continuously flashed around it, and it gave off an incredibly destructive aura that could make people feel terror. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed out, sending out a black sword light that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. Space seemed to be shattered, and everything turned into primal chaos. SSSS. The 3-headed snake gave a massive hiss and sent out the massive black orb, which gave off an aura of destruction as it flew towards Zhao Fu. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out, and the ground continuously trembled. Even the legatees 10 or so regions away heard this explosion and felt the ground tremble. They felt quite shocked, and it seemed that something big had happened on Qin's side. Back at the battlefield, a 100,000-meter-wide crater had appeared. The sky was covered with dust, and the heavens and earth were deathly silent. Within the rubble, Zhao Fu coughed up a mouthful of blood and crawled up. The 3-headed snake was not in a good state either. There were many large wounds on its body, and blood continuously flowed out, dyeing the ground red. It was also heavily injured. Zhao Fu's expression became savage as he tapped off the ground, and his body shot out like an arrow towards the 3-headed snake. The 3-headed snake could sense Zhao Fu's attack, and it raised its body as its 3 heads gave off 3 rays of black light that shot towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu slashed out, and an arc of light destroyed the 3 rays of black light. He arrived before the 3-headed snake, and Zhao Fu once again equipped the Sin Dragon Sword. Countless traces of water vapor gathered, forming a 1,000-meter-long water sword. Boom! Zhao Fu slashed out with all of his strength, sending out a terrifying blade of air that brought with it countless berserk winds towards the 3-headed snake. The 3-headed snake's body gave off a black light as it started to use defensive measures. However, it was still sent flying hundreds of meters by Zhao Fu's attack, and it heavily crashed into the ground, destroying countless trees and causing it to hiss in pain. The 3-headed snake was evidently done for, and Zhao Fu once again rushed up, preparing to finish it off. Bang! Suddenly, a massive pillar of water slammed towards Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu was given a big fright and dodged to the side. However, another pillar of water ferociously slammed towards him, and Zhao Fu once again dodged to the side. However, another pillar of water slammed over, and Zhao Fu was unable to dodge and was sent flying. The ground continuously trembled as a mountain-like figure appeared. It was a massive tortoise that was 10,000 meters long. It had a dark green tortoise shell on its back, and its head was that of a dragon. Its 4 claws were very powerful, and it gave off a mountain-like pressure. The 3-headed snake was called the 3-soul great snake, and it was one of the fish scale world's aquatic beast kings. This tortoise was also one of the aquatic beast kings, and it was called the earth-water dragon tortoise. The earth-water dragon tortoise was even more difficult to deal with than the 3-soul great snake, as it had an incredibly tough tortoise shell. With its defense, almost no one could break through it, and the fish scale people had paid a great price and effort to lure it into the human world. Chapter 752. Zhao Fu crashed to the ground, his face ashen. He had never thought that another aquatic beast king would appear. He had not even gotten rid of the 3-soul great snake yet, and now there was an earth-water dragon tortoise. Zhao Fu felt even more pressure. The earth-water dragon tortoise coldly looked at Zhao Fu, and in the next moment, pillars of water that were 3 meters wide suddenly shot up from the ground towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu hurriedly dodged to the side, but the pillars of water continuously shot up from the ground. These pillars of water were incredibly powerful, and if he was hit, he would not just be lightly injured. A 30-meter-long aquatic beast would be smashed to death by these pillars of water. In the end, Zhao Fu could only fly into the air to avoid the pillars of water. The earth-water dragon tortoise's cold gaze did not change, and it did not move at all. Countless traces of water vapor continuously gathered, forming dozens of massive water orbs. Swish, swish, swish. These water orbs contained immense power as they shot towards Zhao Fu, leaving faint traces in the air. Zhao Fu was forced to unleash his emperor's domain, and he continuously dodged as he swung his sword, destroying the incoming water orbs. Right after defending against a wave of attacks, the earth-water dragon tortoise once again condensed massive water orbs, which shot towards Zhao Fu. Let alone attacking, Zhao Fu could not even get close, making him feel quite sullen. This earth-water dragon tortoise was most likely a water type, and because it had incredible control over water, it could use all sorts of water-type skills. As Zhao Fu dealt with the earth-water dragon tortoise's attacks, he thought about how to deal with it. Suddenly, a black shadow shot over, and the 3-soul great snake recovered some of its strength. It leapt into the sky and opened its mouth as it bit towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu was given a big fright and hurriedly dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding this attack. The earth-water dragon tortoise grasped this opportunity and spat out a water orb, sending Zhao Fu flying back in the blink of an eye. It contained immense power, and Zhao Fu's emperor's domain was covered with cracks. After stabilizing his body in the air, Zhao Fu made up his mind to attack the earth-water dragon tortoise, or else he would be suppressed by it. Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and rushed towards the earth-water dragon tortoise. Seeing Zhao Fu rush over, the earth-water dragon tortoise once again gathered countless water orbs and shot towards Zhao Fu with immense power. As Zhao Fu rushed forwards, he continuously dodged the water balls. If he could not dodge, he would slash out with his sword, and a sword light would flash out, splitting the water balls in half and causing them to scatter everywhere. As the distance between them closed, a hint of panic appeared in the earth-water dragon tortoise's eyes, and large amounts of water vapor once again gathered around it. Roar! A massive water dragon was condensed by the earth-water dragon tortoise and gave off a deafening roar as it gave off a powerful aura and charged at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and sent his power into the Sin Dragon's sword before vigorously slashing out. A water dragon also appeared and rushed towards the earth-water dragon tortoise with immense power. Bang! The 2 water dragons collided with immense power, resulting in a massive explosion and causing water to splash everywhere. By now, Zhao Fu had already rushed in front of the earth-water dragon tortoise, and his sword gave off a terrifying sword light as he slashed towards it. However, the earth-water dragon tortoise immediately retracted its head back into its shell. The terrifying sword light only left a shallow mark on the tortoise shell, not harming it in the slightest. This greatly infuriated Zhao Fu, and just as he was about to attack, countless pillars of water shot up from the ground, forcing Zhao Fu back once again. Bang! A black orb of light sent Zhao Fu flying back, and the three-souled great snake grasped this opportunity to once again attack. It wanted to take revenge for the pain it had suffered from before tenfold. Zhao Fu was once again sent flying, and he landed on the ground and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Bang! 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 The earth-water dragon tortoise once again stretched out its head and condensed water orbs, which shot towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu could only dodge to the side, feeling incredibly annoyed as he was being suppressed by two aquatic beasts. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and quickly thought of something. Sss. The three-souled great snake gave a hiss as it once again opened its mouth and bit towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and his sword gave off an intense sword wind as he once again sent the three-souled great snake flying. Its massive body crashed to the ground, causing the ground to tremble and leaves to fall like rain. Swish, 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 the incredibly wretched earth-water dragon tortoise once again condensed countless water orbs, which shot towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu could only dodge to the side. By now, Zhao Fu had already thought of a countermeasure. He took out the Sky Demon sword and raised it with his other hand as he unleashed Hell's gates. Roar! 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 Countless demons rushed out of the black hole and rushed towards the earth-water dragon tortoise. However, the earth-water dragon tortoise showed no fear. Water vapor madly condensed, forming tens of thousands of water orbs in just an instant. A terrifying aura spread out as tens of thousands of water orbs shot towards the countless demons. Bang! 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 The water orbs smashed into the demons, and the massive force shattered them. The terrifying demon tide was instantly destroyed by the countless water orbs. Suddenly, a streak of light shot towards the earth-water dragon tortoise at an extremely fast speed. This gave the earth-water dragon tortoise a fright, and it immediately retracted its head and claws into its shell. A green sword shot towards the earth-water dragon tortoise. It was the Sin Dragon sword that Zhao Fu had thrown out. The sword stabbed into the ground in front of the earth-water dragon tortoise, and only after a while did the earth-water dragon tortoise dare to stretch out its head and claws again. Zhao Fu coldly laughed as an emperor's seal appeared on his palm. Immediately, a massive wave of energy spread out from his palm, and the Sin Dragon sword in front of the earth-water dragon tortoise gave off a brilliant sword light. The ground started to tremble, and the earth-water dragon tortoise sensed something and panicked. It tried to run in another direction, but it was too late. Boom! A 10,000-meter wide pillar of water suddenly rushed out from below the earth-water dragon tortoise. The massive force sent the massive earth-water dragon tortoise flying 10,000 meters into the sky before heavily crashing down, causing the ground to tremble. The earth-water dragon tortoise had smashed open a 100,000-meter wide crater in the ground, and it looked like a meteor had crashed into it. Countless trees and boulders were destroyed. The earth-water dragon tortoise's appearance was even more wretched. Blood continuously flowed out of its mouth, and it seemed to have been heavily injured. Zhao Fu wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. That king's profoundness had used up a lot of Zhao Fu's strength, and Zhao Fu was currently quite weak. Zhao Fu had thought of the king's profoundness that he had never used before. Before, he had used the Sky Demon sword to cast it, but now Zhao Fu had to use the Sin Dragon sword. There was also the method that the eagle used to eat the tortoise. The tortoise's shell was incredibly tough, and the eagle was unable to eat it. As such, it carried the tortoise into the sky and then heavily smashed it down. The larger the tortoise, the greater the impact. As such, the earth-water dragon tortoise had been heavily injured in just one strike. Chapter 753. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu was once again sent flying, heavily crashing against a cliff. Countless cracks appeared on the cliff, and Zhao Fu coughed up a large mouthful of blood. He had been quite weak, and facing this sudden attack, Zhao Fu had been heavily injured. A 10,000-meter-long aquatic beast king that looked like a lizard was covered with reef. Its eyes were green and it gave off a fishy smell, and it was incredibly powerful. Another aquatic beast king had been lured over. This time, it was called the reef lizard. The reef lizard had shot out a rhombus-shaped reef, which had instantly pierced through Zhao Fu's defenses and sent Zhao Fu flying. Even though the reef lizard was easier to deal with than the earth-water dragon tortoise, Zhao Fu was already heavily injured and was not a match for it at all. At the same time, there was also the three-colored snake and the earth-water dragon tortoise, which had preserved some of its strength. Now that he could not defeat it, Zhao Fu could only choose to run. His body suddenly turned into a ray of light and quickly flew to the side. The reef lizard mocked, and its back started to wriggle as thousands of rhombus-shaped reefs that were 3 meters long shot towards Zhao Fu. With so many reefs giving off massive penetrative power, if Zhao Fu was hit by one, he would definitely be heavily injured. As such, Zhao Fu could only stop and dodge as he defended. Bang! Zhao Fu was suddenly blasted flying by an intense explosion and heavily crashed to the ground. Blood flowed out, dyeing Zhao Fu completely red. Scree! A bird's cry tore through the clouds as a large bird appeared in the sky. This bird did not have any feathers and only had gray scales. Its eyes were blue and its claws were like steel, giving off a cold light. Its body also gave off a blue flame that gave off an intense heat. This heat was no ordinary heat. It was like steam. The blue flame on the bird's body was water attributed. The large bird spread its wings, which were also 10,000 meters wide. It was like a black shadow that covered the sky. Another type of sea beast king had arrived. This aquatic beast king was called the ghost-scale flame bird, and it was the one that had released the blue fireball that had blasted Zhao Fu away. Zhao Fu coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and stood up with difficulty. The reef lizard, three-soul great snake, ghost-scale flame bird, and earth-water dragon tortoise coldly looked at Zhao Fu and once again unleashed different attacks towards Zhao Fu. Sensing these 4 terrifying attacks, Zhao Fu felt a chill in his heart. He could only use his nation armament, or else he would die. Suddenly, 4 figures appeared beside Zhao Fu. Masanori Hanno held a demonic halberd and vigorously swung it, sending out countless traces of demonic chi to block the reef that the reef lizard shot out. Jeffrey held his spear and blocked the 3-soul great snake's black light. Tina Pendragon slashed out, and a golden sword light split the massive blue fireball in half, while Akhenaten unleashed a shield of light, blocking a massive water ball. Looking at the 4 people who had appeared, Zhao Fu's expression was quite complicated. He had never thought that they would save him. It was not just the aquatic beast kings that were attracted by the ripples. The other legatees also sensed the terrifying ripples and understood that something big had happened. Seeing the aftermath of the battle, everyone felt incredibly shocked. Seeing that Zhao Fu was surrounded by the 4 aquatic beast kings, they hurriedly acted. Jeffrey and Tina Pendragon did not have any selfish motives and directly acted. Masanori Hanno had some other thoughts, and because of these thoughts, she acted even faster than the others. As for Akhenaten, because Zhao Fu was an incredibly important person, he could not allow anything to happen to him. Without Qin's legatee, it would be difficult for him in the future. If it wasn't for the fact that the southern continent had suffered, Akhenaten would not have acted to save Zhao Fu. He would have ended up like CG and the others watching from afar. Even though they had to face the invasion of another world as legatees, as long as the world was not in danger, they were still competitors. With Qin's legatee's terrifying power, who knew if he would act against them in the future? Moreover, the aquatic beast king's power was quite terrifying, and they felt that they would not be a match for them even if they went up. Of course, they could not use world energy because the world had not been destroyed yet, so how could they use world energy? World energy was not something that Zhao Fu and the others could use whenever they wanted. It had its own consciousness, and they could only use it if it wanted to give it to them. After all, world energy came from the world's source energy, and it greatly affected the entire world. Unless the world was truly destroyed, it would not give it to them. They felt that they would not be able to defeat the aquatic beast kings, and they also wanted to weaken Qin's legatee's power. As such, they could only watch from afar. "I can deal with this myself. You don't need to do anything," Zhao Fu said to the 4 legatees. Zhao Fu did not want to accept favors from others, as favors were the hardest things to repay. These words immediately made Akhenaten feel quite displeased. If it wasn't for the southern continent, he would not have helped Qin's legatee. Perhaps if Qin's legatee died, they would have a chance to replace him. However, even though Akhenaten thought this, he did not say anything. Geoffrey dryly laughed. Facing Zhao Fu's refusal, he said, "Qin's legatee, this isn't something that you can deal with by yourself. This aquatic beast king is too terrifying, and even I might not be able to stop one, let alone 4. Tina Pendragon lightly nodded and said, "Geoffrey is right." As legatees, facing such a massive crisis is not something that can be dealt with by one person. We should work together and help each other. Masanori Hano's face became slightly red as she nodded. Zhao Fu did not reply and looked at the sky seriously as he said, "If you don't run, we'll all die here." Before anyone could understand what Zhao Fu meant, CG and the others sensed something in the distance, and their expressions fell as they quickly ran. For incredibly terrifying auras once again descended, giving off a power that could cause people to feel despair and terror. Now, Tina Pendragon and the others understood what Zhao Fu meant. From the east, a jellyfish slowly floated over. This jellyfish was 10,000 meters long, and its body was transparent. It had countless tentacles, and it was surrounded by countless clouds, giving off an ethereal yet powerful aura. This was the aquatic beast king, the heavenly cloud jellyfish. From the west, a whale flew over. This whale was 10,000 meters long and had pale white skin. There were 18 blood-red eyes on its head, and it gave off a ferocious demonic chi. This was the aquatic beast king, the Netherocian demon whale. A stingray also flew over from the south. This stingray was 10,000 meters long, and its body seemed to be made of steel. Its tail gave off a chilling light, and it gave off a heavy metallic aura. This was the oceanic beast king, the sift metal stingray. From the north, there was a massive beast that looked like a flood dragon but had no legs. Its body was 10,000 meters long and was covered with violet scales. It gave off a terrifying might, the aquatic beast king, the Sin Flood Dragon. Chapter 754. With the addition of 4 more aquatic beast kings, there were now 8 aquatic beast kings present. The original 4 aquatic beast kings retreated some distance, and the 8 aquatic beast kings each took a corner and gave off heaven-toppling auras. This was an unprecedented terrifying aura, and the space around them seemed to be locked down. The corporeal might they gave off made all living creatures feel terror. These 8 aquatic beast kings were aquatic beasts that guarded the 8 regions of the fish-scale world, and the fish-scale people had no way of dealing with them. As such, they had lured them into the human world to bring disaster to the human world. Their plan had been quite successful. With these 8 aquatic beast kings and countless other aquatic beasts, it could be seen how difficult it was for the fish-scale people to survive. In comparison, the human world was much better off. I told you to hurry up and run. Now that we're surrounded by 8 aquatic beast kings, no one can escape, Zhao Fu said as he sighed. But if we leave, what will you do? Masanori Hanno asked caringly. Hearing this, Zhao Fu did not reply. 3 aquatic beast kings were already enough to heavily injure him, and facing 8 aquatic beast kings, Zhao Fu did not have any confidence at all. Let's take this opportunity to run. We'll need to gather other people to deal with beasts of this level. If we had 100 region lords, dealing with 1 aquatic beast king wouldn't be a problem. It's a pity that system main cities can now slaughter players, and the region lords have lost all restrictions. They can go wherever they want and do whatever they want, Akhenaten said seriously. Akhenaten said seriously. Even though they would not truly die here, they would suffer great losses, so no one wanted to die. Swish, 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 the heaven cloud jellyfish was the first to attack, and its countless tentacles swept towards Zhao Fu like the wind. Each tentacle gave off a cold light that could easily cut through steel. Zhao Fu had long since consumed the best healing medicine, and his injuries quickly recovered. The 5 of them turned into rays of light and shot off in different directions. Out of Tina Pendragon's group of 4, only Tina Pendragon had the confidence to deal with an aquatic beast king. The other 3 did not have much confidence at all. Bang! The sound of something being sliced apart sounded out as the countless tentacles gave off sharp cold lights as they swept past. The place where Zhao Fu and the others had been standing was reduced to countless tiny pieces, looking quite terrifying. Even though the 5 of them had dodged the heaven cloud jellyfish's attack, the other aquatic beast kings also started to attack. The 3-soul great snake, earthwater dragon tortoise, and reef lizard immediately attacked Zhao Fu. The first 2 had enmity with Zhao Fu, while the latter thought that Zhao Fu would be easier to deal with. The Netherocian demon whale and Sin flood dragon started to attack Tina Pendragon, as they felt that she was the greatest threat. The ghost scale flame bird faced off against Masanori Hanno, the sift metal stingray faced off against Akhenaten, and the heaven cloud jellyfish faced off against Jeffrey. On Zhao Fu's side, not only did Zhao Fu recover quickly, but the aquatic beast king's recovery speed was also quite shocking. The 3-soul great snake and earthwater dragon tortoise, who had been heavily injured, had mostly recovered. The reef lizard was the first to attack. Its back squirmed as countless rhombus-shaped reefs containing immense penetrative power shot towards Zhao Fu. The earthwater dragon tortoise also condensed countless water orbs and shot towards Zhao Fu, while the 3-soul great snake madly spat out 3 rays of black light. Bang! 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 Explosions sounded out as these attacks completely inundated Zhao Fu's body, causing the ground to continuously tremble. The 3 beasts madly attacked, causing the surrounding 10 kilometers to be filled with craters. Dust filled the air, and just as the 3 beasts felt quite pleased, thinking that they had killed Zhao Fu, a black ray of light shot out from the dust and escaped. Even though the 3 beasts' attacks covered a large area, they were not as powerful. Zhao Fu unleashed his emperor's domain and hid at the edges, enduring this wave of attacks. He was not in the mood to continue fighting. Escaping was the most important thing right now. Roar! Seeing that Zhao Fu was going to escape, the earthwater dragon tortoise furiously roared, and a powerful aura exploded out as thousands of pillars of water shot up from the ground, cutting off Zhao Fu's path. The 3-soul great snake also furiously roared and leapt at Zhao Fu. The 2 of them had been heavily injured by Zhao Fu before, and their bodies were still in immense pain. They hated Zhao Fu to death, so how could they let him off? With his path cut off, the 3-soul great snake opened its mouth and bit towards Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and could only stop. Seeing the 3-soul great snake coming at him, Zhao Fu felt quite angry. He sent his power into the Sin Dragon Sword, and the 3 water dragons ferociously slammed into the 3-soul great snake and sent it flying. The 3-soul great snake's massive body crashed to the ground, smashing open a large crater and kicking up a large amount of dust. The ground once again violently trembled, and countless trees swayed and leaves fell. Just as Zhao Fu was about to move, his body froze and he was unable to move. An extremely powerful sealing power had bound Zhao Fu's body. The reef lizard's green eyes looked at Zhao Fu with a mocking and disdainful gaze. This was its other ability, ocean prison. The earth-water dragon tortoise was delighted, and it opened its mouth and spat out a water bullet, which contained immense power as it tore through the air and shot towards Zhao Fu. Sensing the reef lizard's gaze, Zhao Fu felt infuriated and struggled to break free. However, the water bullet had already arrived, and Zhao Fu blocked with his sword. However, the water bullet was incredibly powerful, and it sent Zhao Fu flying back in an instant. After heavily crashing to the ground, Zhao Fu coughed up a large mouthful of blood. The reef lizard once again attacked, and countless rhombus-shaped reefs gave off terrifying sounds as they rushed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's gaze became savage as he took out the seraph sword and gripped it with his other hand. Facing the rhombus-shaped reefs, Zhao Fu gripped the sword with both hands and locked onto the reef. The reefs gave off ferocious piercing power as they descended, and Zhao Fu swung the two swords with both hands, sending out rays of sword light and a sharp sword wind. Every falling reef was destroyed by the sword light. After blocking the reef lizard's attack, Zhao Fu suddenly raised the seraph sword, and a holy and pure image of an angel appeared above Zhao Fu's head. It gave a pure smile and spread out its 6 pairs of wings, causing countless rays of white light to shine out as a powerful wave of holy light energy spread out. Boom! Zhao Fu vigorously slashed down, and a massive white ray of light containing searing power rushed towards the reef lizard. The reef lizard was given a big fright, but it was unable to dodge and was hit by the white ray of light. The searing power seemed to burn its body, causing it to howl. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out, causing Zhao Fu's hairs to stand on end, and he felt a terrifying sense of danger. However, before he could react, he was sent flying by the black shadow and crashed into a boulder hundreds of meters away. The massive force from the collision caused the boulder to shatter. Chapter 755. Cough, cough, cough. Zhao Fu continuously coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood and got up from the ground with great difficulty. That attack from before had broken a few of Zhao Fu's bones. At that moment, a flame of fury appeared in Zhao Fu's eyes. Now that he could not escape, he could only charge up and fight. He slashed out with all of his strength, bringing with it a massive sword wind as it swept towards the 3 beasts. Tina Pendragon's situation was not looking good either. Even though she was only facing 2 beasts, which was 1 less than Zhao Fu, she could only take on 1 at most. Now that she was facing 2 beasts, she was clearly not a match for them and was in a difficult situation. The Netherocian demon whale savagely looked at Tina Pendragon with its blood-red eyes and opened its massive mouth, sucking in large amounts of air before spitting it out. A pillar of air containing destructive power shot towards Tina Pendragon. Tina Pendragon gripped her golden sword with both hands, and her body gave off a faint golden light. She looked incredibly dignified and beautiful, and she entered her full power mode. Facing the ferocious pillar of air, Tina Pendragon dodged to the side, and the pillar of air hit a large mountain. It was a mountain that was hundreds of meters tall, and in just an instant, the mountain violently trembled as a 100-meter-wide hole appeared. It was evident just how terrifying the Netherocian demon whale's attack was. Bang! Bang! 10 violet spears of light tore through the air, giving off 10 explosions. The 10 spears gave off incredibly sharp auras as they shot towards Tina Pendragon, who had just dodged the Netherocian demon whale's attack. The Sin Flood Dragon raised its proud body and attacked as well. The 10 spears of light were 100 meters long and gave off terrifying auras. They were also incredibly fast, and Tina Pendragon was unable to dodge at all. She could only remain where she was and gripped her sword with both hands. Just as the spears of light shot over, she suddenly slashed out 10 times, causing 10 golden sword lights to simultaneously fly out. The 10 violet spears of light exploded with a bang as they were slashed apart by the golden sword lights, turning into countless violet motes of light that fell down, looking incredibly beautiful. Roar! The Netherosian demon whale appeared behind Tina Pendragon and gave off a roar. It once again opened its massive mouth and sucked in a large amount of air. This time, it spat out a 1,000-meter-wide air bomb, which gave off a shocking aura as it shot towards Tina Pendragon. Tina Pendragon had just blocked the Sin Flood Dragon's attack, and facing this terrifying attack, she did not even have the time to turn around. She could only explode out with boundless golden light, forming a golden defensive barrier. Bang! The 1,000-meter-wide air bomb gave off terrifying sounds as it slammed into Tina Pendragon's defensive barrier and exploded, turning into a massive gale that spread out in all directions. Tina Pendragon, Pendragon's words, and Pendragon's of Tina Pendragon's blood. SSS. Pendragon's of. Tina Pendragon was given a big fright and continuously slashed out with her sword, causing 2 golden sword lights to slash 2 of the snakes into countless traces of violet aura. However, the third snake ferociously bit into the left side of Tina Pendragon's body, and its fangs pierced through. Blood flowed out of Tina Pendragon's silver-white knight's dress, dyeing it red. Tina Pendragon endured the pain as the golden sword in her right hand gave off waves of sword light. She vigorously slashed out, causing a crescent-shaped sword light to shoot out, cutting the violet snake in half from head to tail. Bang! After being cut in half, the 100-meter-long snake exploded into countless traces of violet aura. At that moment, Tina Pendragon's expression became serious. She raised her golden sword and a formless sword aura exploded out as 8 massive golden ripples appeared in the air. 8 massive golden swords, giving off brilliant golden light and terrifying power, slowly stretched out from the ripples. Boom! Tina Pendragon slashed down and the 8 golden swords gave off boundless divine power as they shot towards the Sin Flood Dragon and Netherosian demon whale incredibly quickly, dyeing the entire sky golden. Roar! Roar! 2 pained beastly roars sounded out. Facing the 8 100-meter-long golden swords, the 2 aquatic beast kings did not dare to be careless. The Sin Flood Dragon spat out a large amount of violet aura that wrapped around its body. The violet aura looked like gas and did not have any defensive power, but in actuality, it was very flexible and was the Sin Flood Dragon's strongest defense. However, the 4 golden swords tore through the violet aura and stabbed into its body, causing blood to flow out like a fountain. This caused it to cry out in pain. The Netherosian demon whale did the same, and it spat out a shockwave, wanting to block the incoming golden swords. However, the shockwave was instantly destroyed, and the 4 golden swords stabbed into its body. Even though it was painful, it was not enough to heavily injure it. The 100-meter-long golden swords were still too small for the 10,000-meter-long aquatic beast kings. This attack caused the Netherosian demon whale and Sin Flood Dragon to become completely enraged, and they rushed up to fight with Tina Pendragon. On Akhenaten's side, he summoned 3 100-meter-tall clay giants. They picked up massive rocks and threw them at the Sif's steel ray in the sky. The massive rocks hit the Sif's steel ray's body, resulting in a few metallic sounds. Apart from this, they were not able to harm the Sift steel ray at all. The Sift steel ray flapped its wings and brought with it a sharp metallic storm as it dove down, destroying some trees and rock. Akhenaten's expression fell, and he controlled the 3 clay giants to give off a powerful aura as they rushed up, wanting to block the Sift steel ray's attack. Bang! A massive sound rang out as dirt flew everywhere. The 3 clay giants were crushed by the Sift steel ray, and they were unable to stop the Sift steel ray at all. Akhenaten's expression became quite unsightly, and he stabbed his magic staff into the ground, causing a massive, eerie aura to rush out of the ground. A 100-meter-tall metal coffin giving off a powerful and eerie aura blocked in front of Akhenaten. Boom! The forest iron ray slammed into the massive metal coffin with its massive metal blade wind, and an ear-piercing sound rang out. Surprisingly, the coffin gave off a gray light that was 10,000 feet long, and it actually blocked the sift iron ray. Scree! At that moment, the sift steel ray gave off a massive howl, and its massive body gave off countless rays of light as a terrifying wind storm exploded out. Crack! A crack appeared on the massive metal coffin, and the crack continued to extend. Akhenaten was given a big fright and hurriedly dodged to the side, causing the metal coffin to completely shatter. Akhenaten was also sent flying by the metal storm, and countless wounds appeared on his body. The intense pain made Akhenaten go crazy, and he roared as countless runes appeared on his hand that was holding his magic staff. Chapter 756. The sylvan metal ray's gaze was cold as it continued to rush towards Akhenaten. Boom! At that moment, Akhenaten swung his staff, and a large hand covered in bandages stretched out from the center of the whirlpool. It gave off boundless power as it sent the sift metal ray flying with a single punch. The sift metal stingray's massive body fell from the sky, and it howled in pain before once again flapping its wings, giving off terrifying power as it rushed towards Akhenaten. It seemed that the sift metal stingray was enraged. Bang! 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 The ghost-scale flame bird spread its massive wings, and thousands of blue fireballs instantly formed, radiating heat in all directions. The ghost-scale flame bird flapped its wings, and the countless fireballs shot towards Masanori Hanno. By now, Masanori Hanno was completely covered by devil chi, and her eyes had become pure black. She held a demonic halberd and darted back and forth like a bolt of lightning, dodging the incoming fireballs. Bang! Seeing Masanori Hanno dodge, the ghost-scale flame bird flapped its wings and once again attacked. It shot out like an arrow, and its massive body made it impossible for Masanori Hanno to dodge. Masanori Hanno's body was like a sandbag as she smashed into the ground, blasting open a large crater. Scree! The ghost-scale flame bird gave an ear-piercing cry as it flapped its wings and swooped down, its sharp claws swiping towards Masanori Hanno in the crater. Arg! Masanori Hanno coughed up a mouthful of blood as she looked at the ghost-scale flame bird charging at her. She gave a sharp cry, and a jet-black devil chi rushed into the sky as a blood-red moon giving off boundless devil chi, and a terrifying might slowly descended. Bang! 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 An extremely terrifying power exploded out from Masanori Hanno's body, and the ground around her started to collapse and turn into nothingness. Boom! At that moment, the ghost-scale flame bird ferociously swiped down with its claws. Masanori Hanno's demonic halberd gave off a massive power, and the ghost-scale flame bird was sent flying back. Scree! The ghost-scale flame bird steadied itself in the air and gave a pained cry. There was a 2-meter deep gash on its chest, and blood continuously flowed out. Bang! The ghost-scale flame bird's eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. The blue flames around its body expanded by many times, completely enveloping its body. At that moment it had completely turned into a blue fire bird, emitting a scorching heat that could be felt from miles away. Howl! The ghost-scale flame bird once again flapped its wings and dove towards Masanori Hanno. A trace of madness appeared in Masanori Hanno's eyes, and she swung her halberd, causing a massive blood-red flame to erupt around her body. She stepped off the ground, causing the ground to crack as she shot into the sky. Boom, 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 explosions continuously sounded out in the surrounding hundreds of kilometers, and the terrifying shock waves caused people's hearts to tremble. The ghost-scale flame bird and Masanori Hanno started a terrifying battle. Jeffrey waved his spear, and the hundreds of two-winged angel images around him shot towards the heaven cloud jellyfish. Bang bang bang, before the angel images could get close to the heaven cloud jellyfish, they were blocked by a formless barrier, causing them to explode. This formless barrier was the heaven cloud jellyfish's powerful defensive ability, and it was called the heaven barrier. Because the heaven cloud jellyfish was very slow, it had developed powerful defenses. The heaven barrier was incredibly tough, and ordinary city lords would not be able to break through it. Swish, swish, swish. After blocking Jeffrey's attack, the heaven cloud jellyfish also started to attack, and countless tentacles once again shot towards Jeffrey. Jeffrey quickly dodged because if he was caught by these tentacles, his body would be instantly shredded into countless pieces. Heaven's Spear. After dodging the attack, Jeffrey once again rushed towards the heaven cloud jellyfish. The white spear in his hand gave off a brilliant light, making it look like a sun. Boom! A formless barrier once again appeared in front of him, and this time, Jeffrey roared as he vigorously stabbed out with his spear. A white ray of light containing unstoppable power slammed into the formless barrier, causing countless spatial ripples to appear on the barrier. Bang! The white ray of light pierced through the formless barrier and landed on the heaven cloud jellyfish's body, causing it to sway. Even though it could not make any sounds, it seemed to be injured, and Jeffrey looked delighted. He could finally attack it. However, in the next second, Jeffrey felt a bone-chilling power. A white eyeball had appeared on the heaven cloud jellyfish's body. Bang! Jeffrey's body was sent flying by a formless energy, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He stabilized his body in the air, but another formless energy continued to attack him, forcing him to dodge and defend. However, he was not a match for the heaven cloud jellyfish. The white eyeball flashed with a cold light, and 10 rays of formless energy sent Jeffrey flying. Boom! Zhao Fu sent the reef lizard flying with a single slash, and it crashed into a mountain and coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Zhao Fu was not in a good state either. His abdomen had been pierced by a piece of reef, and blood continuously flowed out. It was not just Zhao Fu's side that was in a bad state. One of Tina Pendragon's arms had been crippled, and her silver-white knight's dress was riddled with cracks. The Netherocian demon whale and Sin Flood Dragon had also suffered heavy injuries, but in terms of power and recovery speed, they were superior to Tina Pendragon. Now, Tina Pendragon could only wield her sword with one hand and defend with great difficulty. She was completely suppressed by the 2 aquatic beast kings, and it was possible that she would be instantly killed in the next second. Akhenaten was in an even worse state. His body was covered with countless wounds, and blood dyed his body red. He was barely able to defend against the Sift Metal Stingray's attacks, but it was only a matter of time before he lost. Masanori Hano had been smashed into the ground by the Ghost Scale Flame Bird and was on her last breaths. She had already lost and was only a step away from death. However, the Ghost Scale Flame Bird also seemed to be heavily injured, and there were countless wounds all over its body, from which blood continuously flowed out. On the other side, Jeffrey felt as if he had been kicked by a ball. He was sent flying by a formless energy and then sent flying back, and his body was covered with injuries. Bang! The 3-soul Great Snake suddenly attacked while Zhao Fu was observing the battlefield. A ray of black light hit Zhao Fu's back, causing Zhao Fu to stumble and cough up a mouthful of blood, and he almost fell from the sky. Zhao Fu looked at the 3-soul Great Snake and madly glared at the 3-soul Great Snake, causing it to instinctively retreat in fear. However, it felt humiliated and once again hissed at Zhao Fu. By now, Zhao Fu had made his decision and ignored the 3-soul Great Snake as he said loudly, "All of you, get further away from these aquatic beasts." No one understood what Zhao Fu was trying to do, but they still listened to Zhao Fu and quickly distanced themselves from the aquatic beasts. Chapter 757. Zhao Fu stood in the air, and the black and gold Qin seal floated above his head, giving off a soul-devouring black light. Massive ripples appeared in the air, and a dangerous aura filled the sky. "All city lords, heed my command." Zhao Fu raised his hand and roared. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as Great Qin turned into a black dragon and shot into the sky, exploding out with an intense black light that covered the surroundings. Great Qin's might was like a massive hand that pressed down on the air, causing countless trees to snap and boulders to explode, and the ground to crack and collapse. The city lords in Qin City felt their city lord seals tremble, and they understood that Zhao Fu was using their power. City lord seals floated out of the city lords' bodies, giving off different lights and powerful auras. Southeastern City, heed my command. West Pan City, heed my command. Full Moon City, heed my command. White City, heed my command. Water City, heed my command. Peaceful Heart City, heed my command. Loud roars sounded out as city lord seals exploded out with terrifying auras and shot into the sky, giving off brilliant lights and turning into stars. A strange scene appeared in the sky above Qin City. 400 or so stars were scattered in different directions, giving off powerful auras and illuminating the surroundings. Boom! As the city lords sent their power into Qin City Lord seals, boundless black light exploded out from Zhao Fu's body. A black pillar of light shot into the sky and slammed into the sky, giving off a deafening explosion as heaven and earth essence qi madly gathered. A vortex quickly formed in the sky, and it gave off a powerful attractive force that devoured everything like a black hole. Trees were uprooted, and boulders were swept into the sky. It was as if a catastrophe had descended. Tina Pendragon and the others looked at the power that Zhao Fu had exploded out with in shock. The 8 aquatic beast kings also sensed an immense sense of danger, and they started to think about escaping. This place was covered by a haze, and the aquatic beasts and city lords in the distance could sense these terrifying ripples, causing them to look terrified. However, Zhao Fu was not done yet. Within Qin City's City Hall, the 12 metal colossi, Imperial Ruler's Seal, Nation-Suppressing Pillar, and Qin Emperor Peacock seemed to be summoned by something and continuously trembled. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the 4 pillars of light shot into the sky with terrifying power. Traces of black fate floated up from the ground and floated towards the 4 pillars of light, and the ocean-like fate was halved. Bang! A deafening explosion sounded out, and the heavens and earth seemed to have exploded. A heavenly pressure descended, and the space around Zhao Fu directly collapsed, turning into darkness. An extremely terrifying and dangerous aura filled the space between heaven and earth. Not only did Akhenaten and the others feel like ants in front of him, but the 8 aquatic beasts also felt like little beasts. For the first time, endless fear surged in their hearts. It was as if a huge chill had entered their souls, causing their bodies to tremble. The 8 aquatic beast kings looked terrified and quickly retreated. They wanted to escape because they could sense the threat of death. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of chains rang out as at least 1 million chains shot out from all directions, giving off ferocious sounds as they shot towards the 8 aquatic beast kings. The chains quickly bound up the aquatic beast kings. Roar, roar, roar. The 8 aquatic beast kings furiously roared and vigorously struggled, wanting to break free from the chains. However, no matter how they struggled, they were unable to break free at all. The shattered space quickly reformed, revealing Zhao Fu, who gave off a shocking might, as he looked at the 8 aquatic beast kings struggling in terror. Zhao Fu's gaze was cold as he slowly descended to the ground and squatted down. He pressed his palm against the ground, and a formless energy spread out. The chains binding the aquatic beast kings started to drag them underground. Roar, roar, roar. The 8 aquatic beast kings roared in terror as they madly struggled, but they were still dragged underground by the countless chains. After being dragged underground, the 8 aquatic beast kings continued to struggle unwillingly, causing the ground to violently tremble and ripples to appear on the surface of the water. At that moment, Zhao Fu took out an azure spear. This spear was called the Azure Wolf Spear, and it was an epic-grade weapon. Zhao Fu gripped the spear, and the azure spear seemed to be dyed black. Even the item spirit, a massive azure wolf, became a demon wolf. Boom! Zhao Fu vigorously stabbed the black spear into the ground. The spear sank 1 meter into the ground, and a 1,000-meter wide Emperor's seal appeared. A black light spread out, and the ground became calm again. The 8 aquatic beast kings no longer showed any signs of life. Cough. Half squatting on the ground, Zhao Fu once again coughed up a large mouthful of blood, and almost fell to the ground. Zhao Fu immediately took out a bottle of healing pills and consumed them, causing his injuries to slowly recover. Only now did Zhao Fu look at the others. Only 2 people could barely stand, Tina Pendragon and Akhenaten. No matter what their goal was, for them to take such a great risk to save him and put him in such danger, Zhao Fu had to thank them. Tina Pendragon forced a smile and inwardly sighed. She had not been of much use this time, and the 2 aquatic beast kings had forced her into a dead end. In the end, it was Zhao Fu who had resolved this matter. Compared to him, she was far inferior. Akhenaten dryly laughed. He had always regretted coming to save Zhao Fu, but hearing Zhao Fu thank him for the first time, he did not feel any regret. Everything he had done to obtain a trace of friendship from Zhao Fu was enough. Geoffrey's handsome face was now bruised and swollen. He lay on the ground and smiled at Zhao Fu with great difficulty, looking quite pitiful. Zhao Fu took out a bottle of Qin's special healing medicine and placed it in front of Geoffrey. Geoffrey did not hesitate to take it and consume it before summoning an angel image to heal him. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the crater and looked at Masanori Hanno, who had fainted. Zhao Fu picked her up and fed her a healing medicinal pill as well as water of life. After a while, Masanori Hanno slowly woke up. Seeing that she was in Zhao Fu's embrace, her face became red and she sat up. As a devil, her recovery abilities were quite powerful. Everyone recovered from their injuries and started to look at the situation. The results were quite delightful. After the 8 aquatic beast kings had been sealed by Zhao Fu, the aquatic beast tide seemed to have lost its center of gravity. Even though there were still some aquatic beasts charging forwards, many of them had stopped and found a place to rest. Some had run towards the human world's oceans, and the crisis of the aquatic beast tide had been resolved for now. This time, the southern continent's city lords and generals had killed many aquatic beasts, numbering around 4 million or so. Chapter 758. Another thing that made everyone happy was that Zhao Fu had obtained a massive amount of invasion points from sealing the 8 aquatic beast kings. This massive amount of invasion points was enough for Zhao Fu to exchange for a capital city. In other words, Zhao Fu was only half away from obtaining a capital city. This would allow Qin to take another big step on his path to restoring his nation. However, Qin had lost a lot of fate this time, and Zhao Fu had used up half of it. This was the only thing that made Zhao Fu's heart ache. Zhao Fu met CG and the others. They looked at Zhao Fu awkwardly, but Zhao Fu did not mind. After all, no one had the responsibility to help others. Even if they did not help others, they would not have done anything wrong. After all, it was their own choice whether to help or not. In the real world, this might be morally reprehensible, but in terms of duty and responsibility, he had not done anything wrong. As such, Zhao Fu did not mind. Of course, if they were in danger again, Zhao Fu would not go and help them either. Before, everyone had planned to continue killing the aquatic beasts in the human world, but the human world's crisis had not been resolved. Instead, it had become even worse. That's because the seawater has already flooded 50 or so regions. This was the fish scale people's extermination plan. They had thought about and prepared for this plan for a long time, and those who believed that the fish scale people were kind were like pigs. They did not even know how they had died. In times of peace, there was nothing wrong with this. They had not truly invaded the human world, and they had not even taken a step into the human world. However, they wanted to exterminate the human world, and their methods were incredibly vicious. They wanted to exterminate every single human and everything related to the human world. Compared to the fish scale world, the human world's fatal weakness was that it could not breathe or live underwater. However, the fish scale people did not have this weakness, as they could breathe and live underwater. The fish scale world was more than twice as big as the human world because the legacy land was based on the real world. For example, the human world was tens of times bigger than Earth. If the fish scale world was bigger than Earth in the real world, then the Heaven Awakened world would also be bigger than Earth. 90% of their world was made up of water, and there was enough water to drown the human world. Right now, beside the crack, millions of magic formations were operating at the same time, and the seawater was like a dam that released a flood, flooding into the human world. Over at the southern continent, the fish scale people started to carry out their plan. They had thought that the 8 aquatic beast kings would lead millions of aquatic beasts to ravage the entire southern continent, and they had been very confident in the 8 aquatic beast kings' power. The reason for that was because the inheritors on their side were also no match for the Sea Beast King. They were practically completely oppressed by the Sea Beast King. The sea beasts were wreaking havoc on the front lines, eliminating and destroying everything, while they carried out the extermination plan from the back. This was an excellent coordination. In their eyes, the human world was pitifully weak and liked to fight with each other. If it had been a few 100 million people guarding the crack, they would not have been able to carry out their plan so easily. The sounds and shock waves from the aquatic beasts would have been detected by the humans, and they would have faced great resistance. However, the humans had retreated, leaving behind only 3 million people. In the face of an invasion from the human world, these 3 million people were not even worth mentioning. More importantly, they did not have any experts defending them, and they were just a bunch of trash. That was why their plan had been so successful. The fish scale people felt that the humans were all like this, so they could not stop them at all. They had already taken the human world for themselves. It was a pity that they had never thought that the 8 aquatic beast kings guarding the fish scale world would be sealed by Zhao Fu so quickly. This was completely out of their expectations. However, such a big matter like this would be discovered sooner or later. Right now, they had to quickly construct magic formations and send more seawater into the human world. They were incredibly fast, and in just a day they had already flooded 50 or so regions. This sort of speed was like a flood that could not be avoided or escape. No matter what race they were in those 50 or so regions, not a single one was left alive. In fact, some fish and prawns were unable to escape, as they were flooded with seawater. Fish and prawns that lived in freshwater could not survive in seawater. Moreover, this seawater was the fish scale world's seawater, which was even more salty. Many plants and creatures in the fish scale world had adapted and evolved, but the human world had not. This seawater was incredibly destructive, and this was the fish scale world's extermination plan. This extermination plan was not as simple as it sounded. It was to truly exterminate all humans and not leave a single one alive. Even though the human players would not truly die and could escape back to the real world, if the world was flooded and the Heaven Awakened world devoured the real world, it would be the end of the human race. The seawater flooded 50 or so regions and continued to spread out incredibly quickly. This method of exterminating an entire race caused Zhao Fu to feel incredibly furious, and everyone else's expressions were the same. To deal with the threat of the seawater, they could only go to the source and cut it off. Only then would the seawater stop. However, when Zhao Fu and the others arrived, they found countless fish scale people gathered at the chasm. There were countless players and indigenous residents, and there were roughly 1 billion of them. Their goal was not to attack but to defend. This was because they did not have to pay any casualties. The aquatic beasts were a threat to the fish-scale world, so the fish-scale people were not worried about their survival. They just had to defend here and prevent anyone from destroying the magic formations. If the seawater continued to flood in, the entire human world would be destroyed. They set up a barrier around the chasm with 1 billion people. Even if Zhao Fu used his full strength, he would not be able to shake such a powerful barrier at all. Everyone's expressions were quite unsightly, and they could already imagine the terrifying consequences. In a little more than a day, 50 regions would be flooded, and in 10 days, 500 regions would be flooded. In 100 days, 80% of the southern continent would be flooded. In a year, the southern continent would be completely flooded. Because the various continents were separated by oceans, the seawater would directly flood the Midland continent, the northern continent, the western continent, and the eastern archipelago. In a few years, that world would be completely flooded, and the human world would be in an unimaginable state. The fish-scale people would be able to easily take over the human world. The human world would be completely wiped out. That would be the final outcome. Chapter 759. Within the massive barrier, the fish-scale people looked at Zhao Fu's group and the system main city lords with disdainful, mocking gazes. A few people talked and laughed, and some people even started to drink wine. Everyone within the barrier seemed quite happy, and they did not place Zhao Fu's group in their eyes at all. No. It was not just that they could not see through Zhao Fu's group. In their eyes, the entire human world was trash. Old man Shi, your plan is quite good. We just need to wait a bit longer, and we'll be able to obtain the entire human world. Now let's talk about how to divide the human world, an ugly fatty said as he loudly laughed. Another skinny old man calmly replied, It's still early, and the human world hasn't even conquered a single continent yet. What's there to talk about? We'll talk about it after the human world is destroyed. A handsome-looking young man lightly laughed as he said, That's right. It's still early, and the other side has the world protector and legatee. Who knows what might happen, so we should be careful. The ugly fatty disdainfully laughed as he said, Look at those legatees outside. Do you think they can break through the barrier? They can only watch. We're a barrier made by 1 billion people, so I don't believe they can break through it unless they use their world's power. However, the fish-scale world's legatees aren't to be trifled with. A bewitching woman flirtatiously looked at the people outside the barrier and lightly laughed as she said, Now that the 8 aquatic beast kings have been lured into the human world, our world is much more peaceful. Just the 8 aquatic beast kings are enough to make it difficult for the humans to deal with them, so how can they resist us? It's a pity that I wanted to make some humans slaves, but they can't survive underwater, so I can only give up on them. However, I can make them into ice sculptures. If you see any beautiful women or handsome men, please keep them for me. A big man with a mouth full of fangs harumphed as he said, Who's keeping them for you? I still want to eat a few mouthfuls of human meat, but it's a pity that I haven't tasted it yet. Seeing that the aquatic beasts seem quite happy eating it, it should taste quite good. I also want to raise some to change my appetite. The more beautiful the humans, the better they taste. Hearing this, the bewitching woman looked at the big man with disgust and turned her head away, ignoring him. What do we do now? We can't waste any more time. Let's join forces and see if we can break this barrier. Seeing that the southern continent was in such danger, Akhenaten said anxiously. Tina Pendragon shook her head. There's no need to try. This barrier isn't something that we can break. Only if we gather the power of 1 billion people will we be able to break it. I think we should first consider how to defend against the seawater invasion. In just a short while, another dozen or so regions have already been submerged, Masanori Hano suggested as she looked at the surging seawater. Jeffrey thought about it and said, Right now we can't break through the barrier, so we can't stop the seawater from entering the human world. We can only build a dam to stop the seawater, and we'll need to mobilize everyone in the southern continent. Akhenaten nodded. I understand. I'll spread the news later. Geoffrey continued to say, also, building the dam is only temporary. Seeing how the seawater is rising, the dam can only stop it for a while. If the fish scale people sneak in and cause damage, it will be even more troublesome. Once the dam is destroyed, the seawater will continue to invade, so we have to get rid of the source as soon as possible. There was nothing they could do about this powerful barrier, and they could only look at Zhao Fu, who had been silent this entire time. Zhao Fu could only shake his head. He could not break through the barrier formed by 1 billion people, even if he used up all of Qin's fate. Zhao Fu tried using the Earth Realm Mark, but found that he could not use the world's energy, and he could not help but sigh. Seeing that even Zhao Fu could not do anything, everyone's hearts sank, and their expressions became quite serious. CG said, let's tell the entire world about this. It's not something that we can deal with. Not even a single person in the southern continent can deal with it, and the entire world should know about this crisis. Hearing this, everyone nodded. After all, a world invasion was not just a matter of a single continent or a single person. Once a world was invaded, everyone would suffer. Following this, everyone turned into rays of light and disappeared. This matter quickly spread throughout the entire human world, and the various factions were shaken. After hearing that the human world would be destroyed because of this, they realized how serious the situation was, and they could not afford to be careless. At first, they had wanted to weaken the southern continent's strength, but because it would not harm them, they naturally would not do anything. However, now that they were in danger, they had to do something. All of the governmental factions and factions started to discuss how to deal with this matter. Now that the disaster was imminent, everyone was on the same side. No one said that the other side was kind and wanted to resolve this peacefully. After all, if the other side wanted to destroy them and still said that they were kind, they would be truly stupid if they did not do anything. In actuality, those who believed in peace were not stupid either. After all, this greatly threatened their lives, so they naturally would not stand on the fish-scale people's side. With the cooperation of the various factions, the massive magic formations were finally able to move across continents, and they could send large amounts of troops to the various continents. Once this was resolved, the human world's battle power would increase by many times. Only by gathering together would they be able to defend against a world invasion. The humans banded together and started to stop the seawater from invading. However, the speed at which the seawater flowed in was still incredibly fast. Even though everyone put all of their efforts into building dams, 400 or so regions were still inundated, which was equivalent to 15 times the size of China. Some system main cities and player factions were able to retreat as soon as they heard that the seawater was coming. However, some villages and wild beasts were unable to escape. Some wild beasts could sense disaster ahead of time, so they had a trace of life. However, the humans did not have this ability. The seawater was like an apocalyptic flood, inundating everything. Before anyone could react, they were all drowned. It was unknown how many people had drowned in 400 or so regions, but corpses could be seen floating on the water. There were humans, other races, and all sorts of wild beasts. The scene was incredibly tragic. The fish-scale world also sensed this because as the dams were built, the water level rose higher and higher. The fish-scale people were able to sense such an obvious change, as they were a water-type race. Facing the humans' defenses, the fish-scale world continued to increase their forces and started to infiltrate the human world. Now that 400 or so regions on the southern side had been inundated, it became their home ground, making it much easier for them to do anything. Chapter 760. The Southern Continent's dam was built with the efforts of countless people in the southern continent. It was 40 meters tall and 10 meters wide. Because the floodwaters were too great, they had used mud to make the dam at first. Later on, they had used boulders and trees to make the dam. Even though it looked incredibly sturdy, it could not withstand a single attack from a city lord. That was not possible, so there were all sorts of restrictions and talismans on the city walls. At the same time, there were 1.5 billion people gathered here. They came from various continents, and there were players and system indigenous residents among them. Because the fish scale people wanted to exterminate everything, the indigenous residents could only participate. The various city lords and people from other continents also contributed greatly, and all of them contributed greatly. The dam stretched across the southern continent and was incredibly majestic. It could be said to be a miracle, and even though 1.5 billion people were standing on it, it did not feel crowded at all. The people here imitated the fish scale world and set up a barrier for 1.5 billion people, which was also incredibly sturdy. However, because the boundary was so large, the human barrier was weaker than the fish scale world's barrier, as the fish scale world's barrier was all gathered together. With the powerful barrier set up, everyone's uneasy hearts gradually calmed down, and they were no longer as terrified. The human world automatically formed an alliance, and there were not only the governments of the various kingdoms but also the various dynasties of the various continents. It could be said that the human world's most powerful forces were gathered here. However, even though they were all on the same side, no one was willing to submit to the other. As such, this alliance did not have an alliance master, and it was led by the 12 most powerful kingdoms. By the time news of the apocalypse spread, Zhao Fu had returned to Qin City to recover from his injuries. After a few days of rest, his injuries were as good as new. Your Majesty, even though this is a crisis for the human world, it's also an opportunity for Great Qin, Li Si said with a trace of a smile as he walked up to the meeting hall. Zhao Fu felt a bit confused, and he smiled as he asked, "What do you think, Li Si?" Li Si replied, "The fish scale world's invasion is a massive crisis for the entire human world, and it will put immense pressure on the human world. Now that Qin is on good terms with the various city lords, we can use this opportunity to take advantage of the fish scale world's invasion. As long as Qin has enough power to protect them, they will definitely choose to submit to Qin. If even Qin cannot defend against this disaster, they will not be able to retaliate at all. They should know about this as well. If they don't believe me, they can go to other continents now. They aren't stupid and will make the smart decision." After hearing this, Zhao Fu realized what was going on and immediately ordered his people to do this. It did not take long before 102 city lords were willing to join Great Qin. This was simply too great of a surprise, and Zhao Fu could not help but loudly laugh. This was not only because of the fish, but also because of continents Qin continent. Continent. Fish Li's continent. Qin in and continent. After all, people trusted and were familiar with Zhao Fu, which made it easier for them to join Zhao Fu. Before, Zhao Fu had not done anything because he was worried that once he attacked, all of the city lords would sense the danger and ally together. Now that there were no restrictions on regions, it was quite easy for them to come and go, and if they allied together, there would be many of them. Even though Vietnam was to the north, so Zhao Fu would not act for now. As long as he attacked in the other 3 directions, there would be at least 100 regions allied together. If he threatened more people would join him. In actuality, 300 or so regions allied together was quite small, and it was possible that 600 or more regions allied together. If one region had 300,000 soldiers, 10 regions would have 3 million soldiers, 100 regions would have 30 million soldiers, and 300 regions would have 90 million soldiers. It would be quite difficult for Qin to even reach such a force, let alone 600 or so regions. Therefore, Zhao Fu changed his tough style of dealing with the outside world and chose a diplomatic policy of making friends with all sides. Without a strong enough military force to back him up, Zhao Fu would not fight against the outside world. At a time like this, diplomacy was of great use, and they had already obtained 200 or so regions without any bloodshed. Now, the 102 city lords provided Qin with 50 million residents and 10 million stage 1 soldiers, causing Qin's strength to once again rise. By now, Qin's population had reached 470 million or so people, and it had 60 million soldiers. It was definitely the faction that had benefited the most from the fish-scale people's invasion. Now, another 32 regions had become uninhabited. Qin started to clear out these regions. If everything went according to plan, after clearing out these 32 regions, Qin would be able to level up to a level 4 capital city. Zhao Fu did not send any soldiers to the southern continent, not because he did not want to, but because he did not trust the various factions. Most of the factions had brought players and only a small number of indigenous residents. It did not matter how many players died, as they could revive infinitely, but if indigenous residents died, they died. If they suddenly attacked Qin, it was possible that Qin's army would be wiped out. Even though they were united against the outside world, they still had to be wary of others. The various factions were too wary of Qin, so Zhao Fu had to be careful. In the future, Zhao Fu and Qin's army would act independently and would not work together with the other factions. There were no large-scale battles yet, so the army could be used to clear out regions. After taking care of these matters, a soldier came to report that the southern continent had invited him to attend an important meeting. Zhao Fu thought about it and went. Within a luxurious hall, there were countless chairs, and there were thousands of people gathered. These people were undoubtedly the leaders of the various factions, and they all had high statuses. Tina Pendragon and the other legatees had long since arrived, and they sat in a row of chairs. The scene was incredibly lively, and this meeting was to gather the main forces of the human world to discuss how to defend against the fish-scale people's invasion. After a while, a bearded big man could not wait any longer and yelled, "We've been waiting here for so long. Why aren't we starting the meeting yet?" The person with him tugged at him and said, "There's still one person who hasn't come yet, so of course we can't start the meeting." The bearded big man became even more displeased and yelled, "Who's so arrogant to make so many people wait for him? I am very dissatisfied." The person with him rolled his eyes and said, "He's Qin's legatee. Try saying that again after he comes." Chapter 761. The other person's expression became serious as he nodded and said, "It's said that those 8 aquatic beast kings are the aquatic beasts that guard the 8 regions of the fish-scale world. Do you think they're strong or not? If we hadn't gotten rid of those 8 aquatic beast kings, the aquatic beast tide would have been unstoppable, and who knows how many regions they would have ravaged." The bearded big man felt quite envious as he said, "It would be great if I had that much power. I wanted to see what those aquatic beast kings were like and just how powerful they were." Hearing this, the other person lightly laughed as he said, "It's very likely that you'll be instantly killed if you go up. However, I'm a bit worried because the place where the aquatic beast kings are sealed has also been flooded. I wonder if something unexpected will happen." Just as the bearded man was about to say something, the scene suddenly quietened down. Everyone looked towards the door. A cloaked person had appeared at the door without anyone noticing. He was Emperor Qin. Zhao Fu did not mind everyone's gazes and walked into the hall. He looked around before sitting down next to Tina Pendragon. Seeing that Zhao Fu had finally arrived, an elder stepped out and smiled as he said, "The meeting will now begin." A resolute-looking middle-aged man from the Chinese government walked out and spoke. There were 2 main things in this meeting. One was to discuss how to attack, and the other was to discuss how to defend. Right now, the fish-scale people have occupied the breach and are sending large amounts of seawater into the human world. They have also set up a powerful barrier, so we must first get rid of the source of the breach. Only then will the seawater stop flowing into the human world. Right now, we are building a dam. Even though it has countless restrictions, it is made of mud and stone, and the water is already 10 or so meters high. If the fish scale people destroy the dam, the consequences will be unimaginable. We need to use even sturdier materials to build a second dam, just in case. Hearing this, everyone nodded. They all agreed on the second issue, which was to build a second dam just in case. However, the first problem was not easy to solve. First, they had to figure out how to break through the barrier. There were also the 1 billion or so fish scale people nearby. Everyone discussed this, and Zhao Fu did not say anything and listened intently. While the humans were discussing, the fish scale people had already started to move. A scouting party of thousands of people had stealthily infiltrated the human world. After obtaining some information, Zhao Fu returned to the fish scale world. Apart from reporting on the construction of dams, he also found the place where the 8 aquatic beast kings were sealed. The dangerous aura coming from that region was simply too powerful, and it would be difficult not to notice it. This news caused the fish scale world's side to feel incredibly shocked. They had thought that the 8 aquatic beast kings were still rampaging in the human world and had never thought that they would be sealed so quickly. This made them even more curious as to how the humans had done it. After all, they had been completely helpless against the 8 aquatic beast kings. The fish scale world's legatees stealthily came to the human world and looked at the ink-black spear stabbed into the water. It looked quite ordinary, but it gave off a hair-raising power. I didn't think that the 8 great sea beast kings would be sealed here. It seems that the human world really can't be underestimated. However, they actually placed the seal here. If we remove the seal, the 8 great sea beast kings will definitely attack the humans. This will be very advantageous for us to continue our invasion. The ugly fatty had a smile on his face as he looked at the black spear stuck in the ground. The fanged big man disdainfully harumphed as he said, "Humans live in comfort and are too careless. I'll remove the seal right now." Everyone else looked quite supportive, but they did not act. After all, no one knew how powerful the black spear's sealing power was. Now that someone had volunteered to be a guinea pig, they naturally supported it. However, the power to seal the 8 great sea beast kings was definitely terrifying. Seeing the fanged big man swim over, everyone else stealthily retreated in case anything unexpected happened. The big man came before the black spear and his body gave off a large amount of green light. He exploded out with a terrifying aura, and the surrounding water turned into a shock wave. Suddenly, the big man gripped the black spear. This caused everyone else to feel quite surprised. They had never thought that the big man would be completely fine after gripping the black spear. Following this, the big man started to exert force, trying to pull the black spear out. Bang! A black light flashed as a formless energy sent the big man flying back. His chest was blood red, and it seemed that he had been heavily injured. In front of this energy, the fanged big man was unable to resist at all. Everyone else's expressions showed that they had expected this. Since this person dared to place the sealed region here so easily, there was definitely something off about it. It seemed that this seal was not something they could break. Perhaps their world protector could try, but the fish scale world's world protector had always been cultivating deep within the sea and did not interfere with anything. He had not participated in this invasion, and this was something that the legatees and the various factions had agreed on. The bewitching woman said, "Let's hurry and leave. Now that the seal has been touched, that person will definitely sense it." Everyone nodded, and the ugly big man carried the fanged big man. Even though this big man was quite stupid, he was incredibly powerful. He had been used as a guinea pig by the others, so they had to save him. Now that both sides knew about the other side, there was nothing they could do. They could only temporarily enter a stalemate. Time gradually passed. After waiting here for so long, the humans' passion for battle had slightly decreased. The water level in the dam had been rising to 20 or so meters, and even though the dam had been raised by another 10 meters, the situation was still not looking good. The fish scale world had always held the initiative, while the humans had been on the defensive. As time went on, the humans' passion for battle would gradually decrease, and if they left like before, the fish scale people would most likely launch another sneak attack. They could not continue like this, so they decided to attack. Even though there was a powerful barrier protecting the entrance, if 1 billion people attacked at the same time, the barrier would be easily destroyed. Everyone had long since thought of this method, but they were not very confident in fighting in the water. This was a battle between worlds, and if they made a single mistake, countless people would die. As such, they hesitated, but there was no time left. They could only make a decision. Large ships appeared on the surface of the water. They were finally going to fight, and everyone felt quite excited. They were also quite angry at the fish scale world's extermination plan. After going through this battle, everyone was filled with battle intent, and they gave off a grand aura as they started to head towards the entrance. Chapter 762. The humans also jumped into the water. Because the boats were made of wood, it was quite difficult for people with low cultivation to destroy them. However, people with stage 1 cultivation could easily destroy the boat. Once the boats entered the water, they would sink into the water, and a powerful suction force would drag them into the water. Now that everyone had a water pearl, even if they could not swim, they did not have to worry. Once they fell into the water pearl would give off a faint light. A membrane would appear on the surface of their bodies, which could keep out water and extract oxygen from the water. There were quite a few people attacking this time, and the fleet at the front had all stopped in the water and started to fight with the fish scale people. However, even though the humans had undergone some training, they were still weaker in the water than the fish scale people, who had lived in the water for a long time. The fish scale people were like agile fish in the water and could do all sorts of things, while the humans were quite clumsy. A soldier jumped into the water and stabbed his spear at the fish scale person in front of him. The fish scale person twisted his body incredibly quickly, easily dodging the soldier's attack. He then swam to the other side with a short saber and started to attack the soldier. The fish scale person's attacks were incredibly ferocious, and the soldier could only passively defend as he retreated and used his spear to block. He had no chance to retaliate at all. The soldier furiously shot out a large amount of spear light towards the fish scale person. The fish scale person coldly smiled and agilely retreated, dodging the soldier's attack before kicking out with his legs. A few ripples spread out, and the fish scale person shot out like an arrow and slashed out with his short saber, giving off a cold light. The human soldier was given a big fright and hurriedly retreated, but it was too late. The short saber easily sent his head flying, and blood flowed out from his neck, dyeing the water around him blood-red. His headless corpse also sank into the water. The fish scale person coldly harumphed, "Overestimating yourselves, humans. You dare to fight with us in the water?" Following this, the fish scale person's body twisted and he quickly swam to another human's side, and soon, he had taken another human's head. In the water, humans with the same cultivation would usually lose, and those with lower cultivation would definitely die. Only those with a higher cultivation could suppress the fish scale people. However, the fish scale people were actually more powerful than the humans, so the humans had a one-sided advantage. In just a short while, the human side had lost 10 million people, and they had killed less than 1 million fish scale people. The difference in casualties was simply too great. If they were on land, they definitely would not have suffered so many casualties. However, the water was their home ground, and their cultivations were slightly higher than the humans. The people at the front quickly retreated. The people in charge of commanding here were the generals of the various factions, and they all had a lot of battle experience. Seeing that the front lines had suffered such heavy casualties, if this continued, they would definitely lose, so they had to make some changes. The people at the front felt quite annoyed because they felt like they had nowhere to go. Their power was restricted by the water, and they could not use their full strength. The fish scale people's attacks were incredibly ferocious, and they could only follow orders. As they retreated, a large number of archers appeared behind them. They drew their bows and sent their cultivation power into them, causing the arrowheads to give off a cold light. Because shooting arrows in the water would be weakened by the water, all of the soldiers used their full strength. Arrows tore through the air, giving off shocking sounds. Many fish scale people were given a big fright, and they immediately dodged. However, many fish scale people were still hit, and many of them were injured or killed. This changed the human side situation, and they were finally able to attack the fish scale people. This made everyone feel quite delighted, but the situation quickly turned around as fish scale cavalrymen appeared from the sides of the human army. These fish scale cavalrymen were split into 3 types: those who rode swordfish, those who rode sharks, and those who rode large catfish. The fish scale cavalrymen who rode on swordfish held spears and were incredibly fast. They shot out like rays of silver light, giving off shocking momentum as they charged into the human army. They were unstoppable and unstoppable. The spears pierced through countless human bodies. What was even more ferocious were the cavalrymen who rode sharks. Even though they were not as fast as swordfish, they were not slow either. When they reached the humans, the sharks that were 3 meters long could bite off half of a human's body. The shark cavalrymen held saber-like weapons, which were incredibly suited for large-scale battles. When they slashed out with saber-lights, they could often take 5 or 6 people's head. The ones with the most ferocious auras were the cavalrymen riding catfish. Their catfish were 6 meters long and had large heads. They swam quite quickly and gave off ferocious power as they charged into the human army like ferocious bulls, sending the humans in front of them flying. In front of cavalrymen, infantrymen were easily oppressed. The fish-scale cavalrymen attacked from both sides, causing the human army to suffer heavy losses. Their formations collapsed, and blood dyed the water red. This attack killed at least 70 million humans, while less than 500,000 fish-scale people were injured. The human army continuously retreated, forming defensive formations and no longer attacking. The shield-bearers stood at the outermost perimeter. The humans were quite prepared for underwater battles, and their shields could release a semicircular energy barrier that could simultaneously block attacks from 3 directions. The infantrymen supported the shield-bearers, and the archers in the 3rd row drew their bows. Charge! A tall fish-scale person riding on a massive catfish led a massive group of cavalrymen, giving off a ferocious aura as they charged forwards. The human general roared, "Stop them with your lives on the line. We're the human race's most important line of defense. If we lose, all of humanity will die. Fire!" The soldiers drew their bows, and arrows shot out with a cold light. The shield-bearers roared, and the veins on their bodies bulged as they prepared to desperately defend against the incoming cavalry. Countless arrows flew out, shooting down fish-scale people. Some of the arrows hit their mounts, and even though the fish did not directly die, they felt immense pain and lost control, causing the fish-scale people's momentum to decrease. Boom! However, the fish-scale cavalrymen's momentum was not weak at all, and they slammed into the human army's shield wall. Arg! The human soldiers gripped their shields with both hands and gave heart-wrenching cries as they used all of their strength to defend, forcibly stopping the massive wave of cavalrymen. Arrows madly shot out, causing the fish-scale cavalrymen to suffer heavy casualties. Once the cavalrymen were stopped, the threat they posed would be greatly reduced. The fish-scale cavalrymen could only quickly turn around and retreat, and the pressure on the human side was greatly reduced. Roar! Roar! Chapter 763. These were aquatic beasts, and even though the largest one was only 1,000 meters tall and couldn't compare to the aquatic beasts from before, they were still incredibly powerful. More importantly, these aquatic beasts could be controlled, unlike before when they couldn't be controlled. Under the fish scale people's control, the millions of aquatic beasts started a deathly charge. Rumble! Deafening explosions sounded out as the millions of aquatic beasts gave off terrifying auras as they rushed towards the human army. Get into formation! The human commander roared, reducing the humans' fear towards the aquatic beast tide. Everyone started to move, standing in their own positions and roaring as they exploded out with their full power. Auras rose up from the soldiers' bodies. These auras gathered above them like fog, forming the appearances of the azure dragon, black tortoise, vermilion bird, and white tiger. They gave off terrifying auras and gave off boundless light. 4 barriers of light appeared in front of the human army, blocking in 4 directions. These 4 barriers of light were azure, blue, red, and white, representing different powers. Boom! The apocalyptic wave of millions of aquatic beasts gave off destructive power as it ferociously slammed against the barriers of light, causing them to tremble. Luckily, they were able to block the aquatic beast tide's attack. This allowed the human army to let out a sigh of relief. However, the sounds of conches suddenly sounded out from behind the aquatic beast tide. The countless aquatic beasts seemed to have been provoked by something, and their eyes became blood-red as they exploded out with terrifying auras and once again slammed against the barriers of light. The barriers of light shattered, and the aquatic beast tide ferociously rushed towards the human army. The human army was greatly startled, and the shield-bearers at the front held their shields with both hands and roared as they defended. Bang! 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 The shield-bearers were sent flying, but this also weakened the aquatic beast tide's momentum. The infantrymen at the back madly attacked, stabbing their weapons into the aquatic beasts' bodies. Aquatic beasts were killed one by one, and their corpses sank to the bottom of the water. Bang! 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 The aquatic beasts once again sent the infantrymen in front of them flying, but in the next moment, the shield-bearers roared as they rushed up, once again weakening the aquatic beast tide's momentum. Following this, the infantrymen roared as they continued to rush up, and the archers continuously shot out arrows. The massive wave of aquatic beasts was unable to instantly break through the human army's formation, and it was instead gradually weakened. However, the price for this was massive, and the human army had lost 120 million or so people. However, they had made great gains. They had killed roughly 7 million or so aquatic beasts, causing the aquatic beast tide to collapse. They were no longer a threat, and now they would be hunted down by the humans. Seeing this, the fish scale commander quickly ordered the remaining aquatic beasts to retreat. The fish scale cavalrymen once again gathered, and they charged from the human army from the front, left, and right. Apart from these cavalrymen, a large number of fish-scale archers and infantrymen also appeared. The cavalrymen charged, while the archers shot infantrymen-cavalrymen. As to the human to the tutu. The two sides quickly collided like a massive tidal wave, crashing towards a towering mountain. However, the human army's formation was already on the verge of collapse from dealing with the aquatic beasts, and the fish-scale cavalry's charge dealt a heavy blow to the human army. At that moment, the fish-scale people ferociously charged forwards, and the human army started to collapse. They could only retreat and swim to the surface of the water, climbing onto ship. These ships had formations, so they were much faster than swimming. At that moment, the fish-scale people ferociously charged forwards, and the human army started to collapse. They could only retreat and swim to the surface of the water, climbing onto ship. These ships had magic formations, so they were much faster than swimming. As the human army retreated, the fish-scale people continued to ferociously chase after them. They shot out arrows and destroyed the ships, causing the soldiers on the ships to fall into the water. The fish scale people were quite excited, and they looked as if they were hunting the humans. Out of the 1 billion people who had set out, only 500 million had returned. 400 million players had died, and 100 million Stage 1 soldiers had died. It was because of these Stage 1 soldiers that the human army had been able to fight back. Otherwise, they would not have been able to stop a single wave of fish-scale cavalrymen. On the other hand, the fish-scale people had only lost around 7 million people. The human army had suffered a crushing defeat. The people who had returned felt a trace of fear towards the fish-scale people's savagery and fighting underwater. They had been completely annihilated. Compared to the humans' misery, the fish-scale people were quite delighted. This was a great victory, and they had killed 500 million humans at a cost of 7 million. The fish-scale factions had never thought that they would have such a great harvest. Even though they had expected that the humans would be asking to be beaten up by them underwater, they had never expected the humans to be so weak. The fish-scale people had single-handedly slaughtered the humans. I think we should continue to chase after them. The humans have suffered a great defeat, and their morale is quite low. If we launch a large-scale invasion, we'll be able to make good gains. Moreover, we don't need to directly face them, we just need to destroy the dams they've built. The water level in the dams has reached 30 or so meters, and if the dams collapse, we'll be able to instantly inundate hundreds of regions. We can continue to use seawater to invade the human world, and we won't give them another chance to build dams. That way, we'll be able to conquer the human world very quickly. A white-haired elder said to the countless fish-scale people present. The ugly fatty smiled as he said in agreement, "Also, we should continue to gather our forces and deal a heavy blow to the humans. With a massive army, we'll be able to defend against the humans' other tricks, as well as their final counterattacks." The alluring woman also smiled as she said, "Then shouldn't we talk about how to divide up the human world? Last time, during the beast tide, many of the human world's main cities were destroyed, and it's a pity that their city lord seals were devoured by the aquatic beast. Let's not let that happen again. It's quite a pity to lose so many cities." "That's easy. Whoever takes it first gets it. Right now, 400 or so regions and many villages have been inundated," the fanged man said. The handsome-looking young man smiled as he said, "That's not a bad suggestion. The more you work, the more you get. This will increase our motivation to invade the human world. However, for the sake of fairness, no one can attack those villages. We'll deal with the human dams first." The fish-scale people all smiled and agreed with the other person's suggestion. After discussing in detail, they made a decision. After this battle, they had enough confidence that they could destroy the human world. The humans were like livestock to them, and they could kill them whenever they wanted. This was the reason why the fish-scale people were so confident. However, with the results of this battle, they indeed had the right to say this. Chapter 764. The sky was filled with stars, making it look like a river of stars. Even though there was no moon, the light was not weak, and it was possible to see things that were not too far away. After this battle, the humans' morale plummeted, and they were like defeated roosters. They lowered their heads and did not have any will to fight at all. Before, they did not know the fish-scale people's true strength, but after this battle, they understood just how terrifying the fish-scale people were in the water. By now, everyone was filled with fear towards the fish-scale people. If they could not overcome this fear, they might be defeated before they even fought against the fish-scale people. This crushing defeat shook the entire human world, and the entire human world felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. Ordinary residents started to feel terrified, and an uneasy feeling covered the entire human world. More and more people volunteered to head to the southern continent to defend against the invasion. At that moment, the various countries started to spread their patriotism, hoping to send more soldiers to defend against the invasion. Right now, there were only 1 billion people defending the southern dikes, and none of them had much confidence. At that moment, the fish scale people started to attack. Arrows shot out from the water towards the humans on the dike. The humans were hit by the arrows, causing blood to fly everywhere. Pained cries sounded out in the beautiful night sky, and this was the start of a massive battle. Facing the countless arrows, the humans quickly reacted and raised their shields to defend. At the same time, the archers started to counterattack. The human soldiers hurriedly defended against the fish scale people's attacks, while the fish scale people calmly attacked. Their goal was not to take down the dikes, so they naturally would not attack. The archers acted as cover while the soldiers dove into the water and started to destroy the dikes that the humans had constructed. Because there were powerful barriers and all sorts of talismans around the dikes, the fish scale people swung their weapons, sending out terrifying cold lights as they attacked the dikes made of mud, rocks, and trees. There was a ray of light on the surface of the dam that blocked all of the attacks. This was the power of the barrier and talismans. Otherwise, a Stage 3 battle general would be able to pierce through the entire dam with a full-powered strike. Without the support of the barrier, the material of the dam itself was too weak. Of course, the barriers and talismans' power could not be maintained forever. Once they were attacked, they would gradually weaken and then be destroyed. As the fish scale people attacked, the light on the dikes dimmed. Seeing this, many people realized what was going on and cried out in terror, "There's a fish scale people attacking the dikes!" The human soldiers reacted, and the archers immediately shot powerful arrows towards the bottom of the dam. However, the fish scales were also prepared, and each of them carried a large shield. The arrows that came from above were shot 30 meters into the water, and their power was greatly reduced. Using the large shield to block the arrows from the human soldiers, they continued to destroy the barrier that the humans had set up. The fish scale people took advantage of the fact that the humans' attention was diverted to once again ferociously attack. Arrows filled the sky as many human soldiers were killed, and cries of pain and blood filled the air. As the countless fish scales attacked, the glow on the surface of the dam grew weaker and weaker. If this continued, the dam would definitely be destroyed by the fish scales. Above, the 10,000 city lords exploded out with their city lord seals, causing a heaven-shaking power to spread out, wanting to interfere. However, the fish scale world's city lords were not just for show. They also exploded out with terrifying power, and a battle between city lords unfolded. Explosions tore through the sky, and the aura of destruction could be felt by more than half of the southern continent. By now, the humans had thought of how to deal with the fish scale people underwater, and they started to pour down a large amount of crystalline powder. This was ice powder, which had been used when the players had attacked Qin City. It could quickly freeze the ground. As the ice powder fell, the water started to freeze at a speed visible to the naked eye, and traces of cold air rose up. The fish scale people underwater were given a big fright and quickly retreated, and some of the fish scale people who reacted too slowly were completely frozen. In just a short while, the water 50 meters in front of the dikes was covered with a thick layer of ice, and countless fish scale people were forced to retreat. The humans were naturally delighted. However, the fish scale people did not look too surprised. People wearing robes and holding coral staffs walked out, and countless soldiers gathered around them. The soldiers gave off powerful auras and sent their power into these people. These people raised their coral staffs and chanted incantations, causing an extremely dangerous aura to spread out. The seawater started to churn, and anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the fish scale people were using something incredibly terrifying. "Hurry and stop them!" the Guardian General yelled, and everyone else looked terrified. They hurriedly drew their bows and shot towards the people in robes. However, the fish scale people were prepared, and the fish scale soldiers holding reef shields easily blocked the humans' attacks. See God! At that moment, the people in robes roared as a massive aura spread out like a flood. The seawater condensed into thousands of 10,000-meter-long aquatic beasts that gave off terrifying auras as they charged towards the ice. Of course, these aquatic beasts could not compare to the aquatic beast king, but they were not weak either. The 50-meter-thick ice was instantly shattered, and countless pieces of ice flew everywhere. Following this, the aquatic beasts continued to smash towards the dikes, causing them to violently tremble, and the light they gave off became even dimmer. Boom! The aquatic beasts once again smashed into the dikes, causing countless cracks to appear on them. The barrier around the dikes had already been destroyed, and with just a light smash, the dikes would collapse. Hurry and retreat. Head to the second dikes, the Guardian General loudly ordered. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, everyone hurriedly used the teleportation channel to head to the defensive walls that had just been constructed. As the human army retreated, the fish-scale people became even more fearless and attacked the dikes with all of their strength. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the majestic dikes completely collapsed. Seawater flooded forwards, instantly inundating countless regions. They had been able to break through the humans' final defensive line without suffering many losses, and the fish-scale people looked incredibly delighted. However, soon they received news that the humans had finished constructing the second dike. This made the fish-scale people feel quite surprised. The humans had already constructed the second dikes so quickly. However, they did not pay too much mind. They had already destroyed the first dike so easily, so why would they be afraid of the second one? They had the confidence to easily destroy it. Chapter 765. The final battle was about to begin, and both sides were locked in a stalemate. After that battle, the humans had lost another 100 million humans, and there were only 900 million humans standing on the dam. The fish-scale people were densely packed below, and there were roughly 3 billion of them. The fish-scale people had not suffered many losses in the previous battle. The fish-scale people were incredibly confident, and looking at the dam that was even more wretched than the first dam, they all looked quite disdainful and acted as if they had won. The Fanged Man loudly laughed and pointed at Tina Pendragon as he said, "From now on, you're my woman. As long as you properly serve me, I won't eat you in the future. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I want you to be my female slave. I'll do you every day." These words caused Tina Pendragon, who had a good temper, to feel quite angry, and she slightly frowned. The ugly fatty also loudly laughed as he said, "I'll also choose one then." Following this, the fatty pointed at Masanori Hano and said savagely, "From now on, you're my female slave. I don't want to say anything else, but if you're willing, I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, I'll skin you and use you as decorations." The enchanting woman coldly harumphed in dissatisfaction. The two things that she had wanted had been taken, but there were still some good ones among the remaining men. She pointed at CG and Jeffrey and said, "You two can become my male slaves as well. You humans don't have much hope of winning against us anymore. As long as you two become good male slaves, I'll guarantee your safety." The two people's words caused Masanori Hano and the others to feel quite angry. Masanori Hano's expression became cold, and CG and Jeffrey glared at the enchanting woman. "I'll give you all a final warning. Submit to the fish-scale world, and you humans can be kept as slaves. Otherwise, your human race will go extinct," the white-haired elder said domineeringly as he stood with his hands behind his back. Tina Pendragon did not say anything as she slashed out a shocking golden sword light, dyeing the entire world golden as she attacked the white-haired elder and the others. This was the start of the battle. Seeing that the humans were not willing to surrender, the fish-scale people started to attack. Countless arrows filled the sky as countless fish-scale people dove into the water, preparing to destroy the barrier around the dam. 3 billion fish-scale people were fighting against 900 million humans. Just in terms of momentum, the humans lost, and in terms of attack power, they were completely suppressed. However, the situation suddenly changed as large groups of fish scale people coughed up blood and died. This caused countless people to feel incredibly shocked. The fish scale city lord in the sky looked incredibly terrified, unable to understand what was going on. Why had so many of his soldiers suddenly died? The humans felt quite confused and did not understand what was going on, but the 20 or so people from the Southern Alliance, as well as C.G. Akhenaten's legatee, understood what was going on and smiled. Geoffrey heavily sighed, and Tina Pendragon fell silent. Masanori Hano had a big smile on her face as she looked at the ugly fatty with a pleased expression. This made the fish scale people realize that they had fallen for a trap, but they were unable to do anything about it. Every second, tens of thousands of fish scale people died, and countless fish scale people's corpses floated to the surface of the water. They looked incredibly savage, and the fish scale people present fell into boundless terror. At that moment, one of the fish scale city lords realized what was going on and shouted, "This water contains intense poison." These words caused the fish scale leaders' expressions to fall. They had never thought that the other side would use such insidious methods, and they immediately ordered their soldiers to use their cultivation to resist the poison. The countless soldiers hurriedly did as they were told, but it was completely useless. A fish scale soldier coughed up blood as he yelled, "This poison is too powerful, we can't resist it at all." This caused the fish scale leaders' hearts to sink. They could only allow their soldiers to leave the poisonous water, but they could not leave the water at all. They did not have the ability to fly, and ordinary city lords could only fly with their city lord seal's power. In just a few moments, 1.5 billion fish scale people had been poisoned to death. The fish scale leaders felt as if they were going to go crazy, and they yelled, "Attack the dikes! Only then can we leave the water." A black ray of light giving off a massive aura suddenly descended above the dike. The sky became incredibly silent, and thousands of city lords appeared. This person's appearance caused the ugly fatty and the others' expressions to fall. Sensing his aura, they could tell that he was the person who had sealed the 8 aquatic beast kings. Seeing this person appear with countless city lords, the humans could not help but excitedly yell, "Legatee Chin! Legatee Chin! Legatee Chin!" Zhao Fu ignored their cries and took out 100 bottles. He opened them and threw them into the water. The thousands of city lords behind him also took out barrels of poison and poured them into the water. The soldiers on the dikes also started to pour poison into the water. Now that the poison was attacking from both the front and the back, even if the fish scale people charged forwards and entered the poisoned water, they would be poisoned to death. The poison could directly seep through their skin. This was the human world's ultimate move, and only the higher-ups of the Alliance knew about it. It had been suggested by Zhao Fu, and he had personally carried it out. He had secretly collected all of the human world's poisons in order to carry out this plan. 400 or so regions had been submerged, and the dikes that the humans had built had become an independent body of water. If the poison was thrown into the fish scale world, because of how big it was, it would definitely be diluted by the water. However, the dikes that the humans had built could ensure that the poison would be even more intense. This was because they had collected all of the human world's poisons, which was why they had such an effect. Moreover, most of these poisons had been refined by Zhao Fu using the 10,000 poison divine cauldron, making them even more terrifying. Because the 10,000 poison divine cauldron had refined so many poisons, it had leveled up to a level 2 saint armament, the same level as the Sin Dragon sword. This was the reason why Tina Pendragon and the others had not appeared when the fish scale people attacked the dike. It was also one of the reasons why the human world had suffered such a great defeat. Their goal was naturally to lure the fish scale people's forces into the human world and destroy them. In other words, they were using 600 million human lives to exchange for 3 billion fish scale people's lives. However, the fish scale people's ferocity still shocked Zhao Fu. If they did not use these methods, the humans definitely would not be a match for the fish scale people in the water. In a direct confrontation, the humans would definitely lose. The poison corroded the fish scale people incredibly quickly, and the fish scale people quickly died in terror and despair. The fish scale city lords were unable to do anything about this. Now there were only 300 million fish scale people left, and the countless city lords could only give up on them. Now that they had lost, they could only run, and they all looked at Zhao Fu hatefully. Chapter 766. Zhao Fu rushed up and used the power of the Qin seal, giving off a terrifying aura. He killed a city lord with each strike, and the other city lords also chased after the fish scale city lord. The fish scale city lords could only run. After all, this was the humans' territory, and there were more city lords than them. Moreover, more city lords were continuously rushing over, and there were countless soldiers supporting them. As such, the fish scale city lords could not stay here. After madly hunting, the human side had lost 100 or so city lords, but they had killed 4,000 or so city lords. Zhao Fu had killed 150 by himself and obtained 150 city lord seals. It was a pity that the city lord seals could only be obtained by entering the fish scale world and obtaining cities. This was not an ordinary level of danger, especially when both sides were enemies. If they were discovered, they would be surrounded and attacked by the entire world. However, the fish scale side had lost 4,000 city lords and 3 billion people, which was a heavy blow to the other side. Now that they had taken a great blow, they most likely would not dare to do anything for a while. After killing the city lords, Zhao Fu looked at the countless corpses on the surface of the water, and he ordered the 10 million Qin soldiers he had brought to jump into the water to retrieve the corpses. All of the soldiers had water-repelling pearls, which could completely block out the water. The water-repelling pearls were much more effective than the water pearls, as the water pearls could not completely block out the poisonous water. Looking at the corpses, even if their equipment was only worth 1 gold coin, it would be worth 3 billion gold coins. Moreover, this set of equipment was worth at least 6 or 7 gold coins, and if he could obtain all of it, he would be able to obtain at least 18 billion gold coins. As expected, even though war was accompanied by massive risks, it also brought massive benefit. Apart from this, Zhao Fu was quite interested in the system main city soldiers' corpses. During the previous battle, Zhao Fu had secretly collected the 100 million system main city soldiers' corpses. He could only do this in secret, as if he was too obvious, he would be viewed with hostility by all of the southern side city lords. After all, these were their soldiers. Each system main city had sent out 500 soldiers. Even though 100 million people was a lot, after distributing the casualties, each system main city had suffered very few losses. If these soldiers were not very important to Qin, Zhao Fu actually wanted to bury them. After all, they had died to protect the human world. However, Qin really needed the rank 1 blood god pill. It was no longer possible to buy corpses outside the legacy land, so Qin had to obtain them himself. Everything was for Qin, and Zhao Fu didn't care about these things. As long as Qin could become strong, it didn't matter what he did. Many people watched as Qin fished out the corpses one by one. They immediately understood the value of the corpses, but they did not dare to go into the water. Just now, someone could not help but jump into the water to search for the corpses, but he was also poisoned to death. Now, they could only watch enviously as Qin's soldiers quickly put the corpses into their storage rings. The other city lords and legatees also understood the value of these corpses. Even though they had the power to fish up the corpses in the air, with their prestigious statuses, how could they do something like that for 6 or 7 gold coins? Moreover, a single person would not be able to fish up much. Right now, the one who had benefited the most from this battle was definitely Qin, and Qin hadn't even sent a single soldier to fight. Only Qin's legatee had contributed a bit. Now that they had received such great benefits, many people felt quite dissatisfied, and many people looked at Zhao Fu with enmity. Legatee Qin, aren't you afraid of your conscience for taking so much in one go? One of the city lords said as he looked at his companions. If he was by himself, he would not dare to say anything in front of Zhao Fu. However, with the support of others, things were different. One of the Western Continent city lords said fearlessly, "That's right. You've taken all the benefits this time, and we've gotten nothing. Don't you think you're going too far?" Everyone else felt quite angry and looked at Zhao Fu with a trace of displeasure, and some people even looked at him with a trace of enmity. The system city lords moved further away for their own safety. Otherwise, if the southern continent was in danger of being destroyed, they definitely would not cooperate with players. They would not care about the players' lives or death. Now that the greatest danger had been resolved, there was no need for them to participate in the battle between players. This massive amount of wealth was not something that they cared about. The various dynasty legatees inwardly felt quite delighted and expressed their support for those who had spoken. They feared Qin too much, so of course they wanted to weaken him. Seeing such a massive amount of wealth fall into Qin's hands made them feel quite pained. Chapter 767. Before, there had been millions of fish-scale people guarding this place, but after hearing that the army at the front lines had all been killed and the city lords had escaped, they were all scared out of their wits and did not dare to stay. Without the fish-scale people, the humans were able to destroy the barrier without any worries. Everyone started to destroy the barrier, and soon, the barrier that even Zhao Fu could not destroy was destroyed by the 900 million humans and the city lord. Following this, they destroyed the magic formations, and the boundless seawater finally stopped flowing into the human world. The human race's greatest crisis had been resolved. What about the poisonous water in the human world? That poisonous water is too poisonous, and once the dam collapses, the poisonous water will spread out. It will be even more terrifying than a flood, and leaving it in the human world will be a great threat. Akhenaten asked. After destroying the magic formations, everyone felt relieved. This made things difficult for everyone, as such a large amount of poisonous water would be incredibly difficult to deal with. Once it was leaked, it would be incredibly dangerous. A Japanese person said savagely, "This water came from the fish-scale world, and if we send it back, it will be enough to kill countless fish-scale people. Since the fish-scale people want to destroy us, we'll destroy them as well." A white-haired Chinese general glanced at him and said, "That's not very likely. At most, only a few people will die. After all, there is too much water in the fish-scale world, and the deepest places are hundreds of thousands of meters deep. Even if there is so much poisonous water, it will quickly be diluted, and it won't kill many people. However, I've thought of a way to completely deal with the fish-scale people's invasion, and we won't have to worry about them doing anything." These words caused everyone to feel delighted, and they asked the general, "What is it?" The general smiled as he explained, "We can do this. Before, we were afraid that the second dam would be destroyed, so we prepared a large amount of ice powder and used it to quickly build a third dam. Great Qin's plan has been extremely successful, and they have successfully killed the invading fish-scale people with poison. We can use the remaining ice powder here to pour the poison into the fish-scale world before sealing it with ice to prevent the poison from leaking. We can create a poisonous ice region in the fish-scale world, and we can send people to stand guard there. Once the fish-scale people invade again, we can melt the poisonous ice, allowing the poison to quickly spread and kill all invading fish-scale people." Before, when comparing fish scales to humans, humans' greatest weakness was that they couldn't breathe or live underwater. Now, when comparing humans to fish scales, the fish scales' greatest weakness was that they couldn't live underwater. We can use this to completely suppress them. These words made everyone understand, and they all agreed, starting to act according to the old general's plan. They started to set up magic formations, causing massive pillars of water to pour into the fish scale world. Some city lords were responsible for sprinkling ice powder, and because so many people had died in the dams, the water became somewhat blood-red. At first, it was a blood-red island, but it gradually expanded. Not only did it bring with it a bone-chilling cold, but it also brought with it the danger of poisoning everything. Not only did countless sea beasts not dare to approach it, but even the small fish and prawns did not dare to take a step forward. All of them fled from where they were. The water that covered 400 or so regions could not be drained in an instant, and it would take a long time. The fish scale people were incredibly furious at what the humans had done, but they could not go any closer. The region was covered with poisonous water, and no one dared to get close. The city lords could fly over, but because 4,000 city lords had just died, none of them dared to get close. The human invasion had caused so many fish scale people and city lords to die, causing the entire fish scale world to be shaken. The various factions started to look at the humans in a different light, and they started to view them as dangerous. All sides knew about the war. The various forces that had led the invasion were condemned, and more than 20 of them were kicked out of their positions as leaders. The legatees did not have it easy either, as they had suffered the heaviest losses. Not only had their battle strength plummeted, but they had also lost morale. Even though they were the legatees, they were punished by the various elders of their families. The most important figure in this battle entered the eyes of all fish scale people. He was the Qin Empire's emperor, the person who had sealed the 8 aquatic beast kings, and the king with the most potential in the human world. He was the human world's world protector, the human world's most powerful faction, and the human world's most licentious ruler. With such a vicious reputation, as well as the fact that he had forcefully turned the situation around, he was listed as an extremely dangerous figure by countless fish scale factions. He was the fish scale people's greatest enemy, and he was someone that countless women had to be wary of. While the fish scale people were setting up the island, Zhao Fu had already finished collecting the corpses. There were 3 billion corpses too. 5 billion players and 500 million system main city soldiers. Apart from their equipment, there were also other items. Just the money that they had obtained from the corpses amounted to 5 billion gold coins, and Zhao Fu planned to take out 1 billion gold coins as a reward for the various factions. Adding on the equipment, items, and money, the total value of the corpses was 25 billion gold coins. This amount caused even Zhao Fu to feel shocked. He had never thought that he would have so much money before. Apart from the massive wealth, there were also the corpses. The 500 million fish scale people, and the 100 million human corpses amounted to 600 million Stage 1 corpses. With these corpses, the Qin Empire would not have to worry about having too many corpses in the next few years, which made Zhao Fu feel even more delighted. Moreover, they had poisoned 30% of the fish scale people, and even though they did not receive any EXP, their invasion points were all given to Zhao Fu. This time, Zhao Fu once again obtained a large number of invasion points. With the invasion points and the points from sealing the aquatic beast kings, Zhao Fu would be able to exchange for a capital city, which was another delightful matter. Zhao Fu could not stop smiling. His gains this time were simply too great, and he was pleasantly surprised. Following this, the various factions broke through the barrier and returned, and Zhao Fu gave them their rewards, causing them to cheer and feel incredibly happy. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu sensed something, and his expression fell. He hurriedly looked at his spatial ring and found that the countless city lord seals had dimmed and lost all their luster. Seeing this, Zhao Fu could not help but sigh. There was only one reason why the city lord seals had become like this, which was that the city had been conquered by someone else, and the city had become an advanced town. These city lord seals naturally lost their power. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.